should still do Mount Kosciosko. He's like, I'm doing Mount Kosciosko. He's like, I'm coming off an injury. He's like, surely you can do it. And like, I was like,
that's... Pretty much called you out.
Yeah. And I'm still thinking, I'm like, shit, it's a long way still. Like, I was like...
100K, bro.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, stuff it, why not? Like, so I chucked my name down. And because people sort of get to that stage, I think I might have been 7 weeks out from Mount Kosciosko at that stage. And the longest I'd still ran was that 21K that I'd done on my half Ironman. Once I sign up and then I go back to my triathlon coach, I'm like, oh, I'm looking at him. This is when we go to the pools. And because I hadn't really been training for triathlon. He's like, oh, just come for a swim and just stay fit, like stay swim ready or whatnot. Ready, yeah. So like we're there and in the middle of the swim session, I go, oh, what are your thoughts about running 100K? And like, he like looks at me, he goes, wait, what? Why? I was like, I just signed up for 100K as I was like diving off to go. As I was diving to go and do my next lap.
And take 132 to try and get this introduction right. Anyways, welcome guys. Thanks for joining me on another episode of the INTOCHANGE Podcast. Today I'm joined by a man who knows no physical limits. A man who pushes his body to the absolute physical extreme whilst also lifting up everyone around him. I give you Layne Storrier. Now in September, Layne will be taking on the challenge of his life by completing his own version of James Lawrence's 50 Ironmans in 50 days. Layne will be attempting 36 half Ironmans in 36 consecutive days, and take into consideration that he only ever completed his first triathlon or first half Ironman last year. So if you need a bit of inspiration to get off your ass and do something with your life, this is the episode you want to watch, because I can tell you right now, it's a true inspiration. I'll see you there in a second. Layno, Insano, the man, the myth, the motherfucking legend.
It's good to be here. Good to be here, Benny.
Welcome to the podcast, bro. Thank you very much for coming on, man. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Yeah.
Now, we met at Mega Run.
Mate, what a place. What a place it is. Life-changing, really. It's a life-changing place. Even just my space there being... It's not even 6 months since I've done my first Mega Run. And the way... What
was the first one you came to?
First one I come to was New Year's Eve in Brizzy.
Yep.
So I drove up from Sydney, done that in Brizzy.
Yeah.
So I had me ute, camped at Kangaroo Point, actually.
Tell me the story.
Had me swag in the back of the ute, camped at Kangaroo Point.
Yeah.
And then come down to New Year's so I'd done the back-to-back on the Sun, so then come down to Gold Coast to do both of those. And that's actually where I met my missus on the Gold Coast one. So
hang on, so you and Tay have only been together, what, like 6 months?
6 months, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, the relationships and everything that I've built over the last 6 months is unreal, man. Like meeting people like yourself, the friendship group. Oh, mate, you're making me blush. But but yeah, no, the people that you meet there, it's like a big family. Like we come down there on a Sunday and everyone just gets amongst each other. Like I don't end up leaving there till 11 o'clock, 11:30 most Sundays. Yeah. So,
for most people that don't understand what Mega Run is, we get there at like 6:30. We run at like, till maybe 7:30. So to be there till 11, that's like, spend most of the day there.
You're chatting around. So, and like even I live up at Brizzy, so it's like, I'm driving back. I'm not getting home till like 12:30, 1 o'clock at some days on a Sunday. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a 10K run bit. Like,
it's a long 10K.
Yeah, it's a long 10K run. Like, probably go out and do a marathon in that time. But so.
Man, that's the thing that I love about Mega Run is like you're out there meeting like-minded people. And for me personally, it really did change my life, like you said.
Yeah.
Like when I was first introduced to Mega Run, I was still in the party scene a little bit here and there, you know. So I was actually out there and realised there was people that were getting up at this time of the day that hadn't been awake from the night before. That were actually out there getting after it. And to me, it was like I'd found my people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was really something that I struggled with for a long time, was actually finding people that are doing similar things, because I was in that group of, partying and doing that sort of stuff.
100%. And like when you put yourself in that group of people,
you
sort of like, I look at it when I was back in Sydney, I didn't have that group of people. So like when I was doing my Sunday morning runs, I was by myself and I was like, I couldn't find, obviously I lived out of town a bit more and whatnot, and I was just happy doing my own thing. But when you come up here and you find these group of people, you're like, oh my God, like, what is this? Like, and that's why as soon as I found it, I was like, I've got to move up here. Like literally within the first time I'd done Brizzy Mega Run, I knew a mate up there who I'd done the run with, and I said to him, I was like, I'm moving up, eh? I was like, no doubts about it. And it just so happened to be that I met Tay the next day. So then I moved, like, I was like, oh, well, I've got to move up. I've got a missus up here now. So, you put it out there. So,
good on you, Tay.
Yeah, thanks, Tay. But it's also, once you start surrounding yourself with those groups and you realize how much fun it is, I don't even look back to what I used to go to anymore. Like, and it's even some people go to me, and I even think about it myself being so bizarre as like not drinking for me. So I haven't drank in like a year now. And it's like, before that, I couldn't look at someone and go, how do you not drink? Like,
right. Yeah.
So I sort of found it really funny, especially being like started dating Tay, because she'd have been around that whole scenario where people don't drink because she's obviously a swimmer. Like, she'd been around those people that don't drink, so they can go out on a night and not drink. The first time I went with like their group of friends and no one was drinking, I was like, oh my God, like this is really cool.
Yeah.
And she's like, what's cool? I was like, oh, that like everyone's having dinner and not having a drink, or not, you don't have one person having to be a dickhead, or
It's a done thing, right? You go for a dinner,
yeah,
for cocktails.
Well, exactly. And it's like, then it comes to 2 o'clock in the morning and you're like, and then you wake up the next day going, next day you're going, oh shit, like that was a big dinner. So, well, it ends up being a $400 dinner.
$50 on food, $450 on cocktails.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's one of those things. I found that so bizarre to be like, for her to say, oh, this is what she presumed as the norm. And I know it's not everyone.
Yeah.
But for me to see someone else has lived that lifestyle for so long, I was like, oh, wow, that was so far from the norm for me.
Yeah, we create our norm, right?
Yeah,
we create
exactly.
our norm by the people we surround ourselves with.
Exactly, 100%. So to be around groups of people that are encouraging you and you don't feel left out, or you don't feel like the loner or whatever, doing something like, I felt like a massive loner when I first stopped drinking or whatnot, because I didn't find that group straight away to gravitate towards. So like everything that I was doing, it was majority by myself, or like I had a couple of mates I'd still keep in contact with. But even when I went out with them, it was sort of like, you still felt like, why am I here? Because you, like, even though some of them might not say nothing, or others might say something, why aren't you drinking this, that, or the other? You still feel like, oh, like as soon as someone says something, you go, oh, why am I here?
It's like, this isn't me anymore.
Yeah.
This isn't part of who I am.
Yeah, and you know you still want to be around your mates and have fun, but it's like going out on a Friday night, that's not me anymore, because I want to get up early on a Saturday morning. So it's like you're sitting there at the pub going, oh shit, like even though you're exactly, you're going, oh, so if I get home, if I leave now, that's only going to give me 7 hours of sleep, and you're going, all right, and then like you're just literally watching your watch and everyone else is having a good time, and but it's like, me being there, that's not what I perceive as a good time anymore. It's like me getting up the next morning early and going from a bike ride or whatever. That's where I get a kick out of the next, now. So it was just having to come to terms with those changes that I'd done. That's really what helped me change. So yeah, that's been a big factor for me. Like, even though I learned how to do it by myself, being able to have a group around me of people that are up early on a Sunday morning, it makes life so much easier.
Well, I guess the big thing that you went through, like you said, or got to go through, was doing that by yourself, because now you're not only doing it for yourself, but you're also leading so many other people to do similar things with, obviously, you know, that being a high pull at Mega Run, so you help run that. Yeah. What's your background before coming to the Gold Coast and before starting with Mega Run when it comes to fitness, running, all that sort of stuff?
So I played like rugby league all my life, so pretty much ever since. Well, actually, I had to play soccer from when I was 5 and 6 because Mum wouldn't let me play league. So I was always a little runt growing up. So I was always skin and bone. Or like pretty much, I was the shortest player on the field till I was like 14. Then I had a bit of a growth burden, but still, I'm skin and bone. So
bit more than that now, but
a bit more than that. Yeah, when I go out and run, it makes me look good. But don't worry, when I was playing league, I was still, I don't know, 73 kilos and
busted on the team butt?
No.
Okay.
See, like I used to always play, well, like growing up I played hooker and then like played second row or whatever pretty much when I was finishing, maybe a bit of centre. But like I was playing in the forwards at this size because I'd always just like had, I don't know, and it sort of comes into now when I'm doing my like triathlon stuff, it's always, when I was playing league, I was like, I'm going to run over that person. I wouldn't even use footwork sometimes, and I was like 70 kilos, and I was trying to run over a front rower at 110.
just bulldozing.
But it's just like it wouldn't happen. Like 9 times out of 10, I get picked up and dumped on my head. But it was just like I had that mindset where I was like, oh, I'm tougher than all these guys out there. So,
that's cool.
So my whole like upbringing, I played league, and like that was really lucky. like I had a really great bunch of mates that we sort of grew up together. Like we had a super successful league team growing up from like the age of when it gets competitive on the 10s all the way up to 18s. We won every grand final. Yeah. So like to be, yeah. So like the only ones we didn't win was like under 16s when we had to play up in under 15s. Like I'd play up a year. Yeah. So being a part of something that was like, we were just bred to win. Like we were all felt like winners, and we had a lot of great league players. I wasn't even anywhere near the top of that. Like had I was really lucky to play with some really gifted people.
Yeah. And they bring the rest of the team up, right?
Yeah. So and we had great coaches, and that just always drilled mindset into us. Like we were always just one of the smallest teams, but it was just like we had skill and we're just tougher. Yeah. So growing up, like that was super lucky to be able to learn that mindset, even though I didn't know where I was going to use it. It was really lucky to learn that in a team sport where we were just tough, and it was just like, all right, you're just getting the ball and you're just bashing it up, but you'd also use skill. So it was like we could hang in there with the big boys because we were fitter, and we just go for more day. Yeah. So that was one thing we were really lucky to learn, like growing up, and then pretty much I got to. What was I? I might have been 21 or whatnot, and we'd won the grand final in reserve grade, undefeated for the year. And then the next year after was like the COVID year, so like all footy got cancelled. Yeah. And a couple of comps did play, so like a few players went elsewhere. And then the year after, no one come back. So it was like from the grand final team that we had, I think we had 3 players back the year after. And I was like, oh, this is a bit shit. Like, and then we started losing a couple of games, and I was like, oh, because we were always such a tight-knit group growing up, and we had such a core base of, like the club that I played out at Camden Rams, like we had such a core base. Once a few people went elsewhere, it was sort of like you get back there, then we were having to bring in new people from different areas. And it wasn't the same. Like it didn't have that same like family feel about the club. Yeah, right. Yeah. And then that year ended up getting cut short again from COVID. And I was like, I think we played half the season. And even towards the end of it, I was like, I am never playing a game of league. Like I just sort of put a bad taste in your mouth. It put a really bad taste. Like even though I loved it my whole life, it really put a bad taste in my mouth because I was still going to training and showing up and whatnot. But like we were showing up and having like 7 people at training. Yeah. And then it was just like you get to the weekend and then people are sulking about losing and that. And it's like, well, if everyone shows up, then we're going to win. But like at training. But like, and the thing was as well, when we were around that atmosphere, we were all drinking on a Saturday night, and then I remember one of the last games, and I took the piss out of it because we were coming second last and we were versus the team coming last. And I didn't think we were going to lose to the team coming last. And the night before, I went to one of my family friends' 50th, and I was like, oh, I'm only going to have 2 beers and drive. Like, I want to play so we can actually win a game tomorrow. Like, I want to play half decent. And I get to the party and there's free drinks and whatnot. And literally I was like, within 2 minutes, one of my best mates comes up to me and goes, oh, you drinking? And I'm like, good. And he was playing first grade, so I didn't have to play. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm just going to drive. And he's like, oh, just drink with me. So then later, like, I end up drinking all night, and like we're
2 beers, turns into 10,
literally.
20,
there was like an old like a bloke doing karaoke. Like we were doing karaoke, we were still on the mic off him. Like it was a house party for a 50th, and like we're still on the mic. We're up there taking his guitar and just like being dickheads. And like so. Yeah, we ended up going to the game the next day, and I was like, I looked in the sheds and like just taking the piss. I was like, oh, anyone who like not go out last night and get pissed? And out of like I think we would have had like 18 shy for the game. No one, not one person stayed in the night before and didn't go out and get on the piss. So it was like, that was the sort of thing. And I was like, oh, like even though I'd done it myself, I was like, that's pretty fucking shit. Yeah. So like, it was also like, we're just showing up for the sake of being there. Yeah. And then, so obviously I fell out of love with league there. And then I really was just sort of going with the wind to try and find what I wanted to do. So it was like, I knew I didn't want to go back and play league. I was like, I've had enough with that. And around about that stage, I sort of started like, because it was still COVID and that, I was like doing a little bits and pieces of fitness. I was seeing like, stuff like Nick Bear. Have you seen? No. So he's this big juiced up guy from America, and he can do like a 250 marathon, like completely unrealistic. Like he's done all the work, but it's like for someone who's my size to go And I was like, I brought his program and I'm like, oh yeah, like I can get as jacked as this guy. He's like 110 kgs and can run a 250 mara.
That's ridiculous.
So, and he's just jacked to like the absolute shit house. So,
That's some serious
So yeah. So, I was doing little bits and pieces of that and like, but it was just I never brought into it anything like that.
Yeah.
Because I always felt like I wanted a challenge that was going to be super hard. And then my sister actually brought home the 75 hard, like the podcast of Andy Frizella's, and she was like, oh, I think it might have even been some influencer that she saw was doing it. And she's like, oh, look how like tough this is. And I remember like I saw it and I read through it and I was like, oh, that's stupid. Like literally I was like, 3.8 litres of water. I was like, you're going to kill your liver. Like, let alone I'm going out there and drinking however much on a Saturday night. I was like...
resistance, eh?
Yeah.
It's that bit of resistance, like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, but could I actually do it?
Yeah. Like, I was like, literally, like, at the start, I remember, like, looking to her and I was like, oh, one of the first things that popped up on my Instagram was, like, this healthcare person talking about, like, how much water you should drink or whatever. And I was like, sent it over to my sister. I was like, see, like, drinking over 2 litres of water for your day, like, bad for you. I was like, it's a stupid idea. And then anyway, like, I start listening to a couple more. And then I was like, all right, like, this is sort of started happening. And then I had my 23rd birthday and I sort of knew I wanted to stop drinking for a little while.
Yeah.
And then I had my 23rd birthday and we went, like, it was like, I had a really close group of mates and we're all really close to my family. So we all went down to a pub, probably about 10 of us, like my parents drove and they drove the missus, like my mum drove the girls' car and my dad drove the boys' car and whatnot. But we got down there and we were like, this is one of the biggest days. Like I was just on drinking everything. Like I literally don't even remember from like 2 o'clock in the Arvo onwards. Like,
yeah, the big one.
And then it was just like glimpses of the day. Like, and it was just like, we were having fun, like just backing a few horses, whatnot. And then we went home and we were just having a party on the back deck.
Yeah.
But I remembered like bugger all. And what happened was we got home and one of my mates tripped me over and I like hit myself a glass bottle, like and split my eye, like above my eye open. And like, he was just taking the piss while not having a laugh, but I just lost me shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're a fucking idiot. Like this, that, the other, whatnot. And just like, because normally when I was drinking, I would keep my cool. Like I was just like one of those people, like I'd drink and I wouldn't bother me. And like for me to lose my shit like that, I was like, oh, that's not me. So then that's when I was like, oh, like I don't really want to drink. Like I was like, well, now's the time to go and do that challenge. Like, because I was like, obviously with Andy Frizella's thing, you've got so many podcasts to listen to. So once I heard the first one, I reckon I listened to about another 20, 30 podcasts before I actually started the challenge. Because it was like, and every like second challenge, I was like, when they did talk about 75 hard, they're like, stop fucking talking, like thinking about it. Just go and do it.
Yeah.
And then I was
But
like...
you had that moment that pushed you.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people have that, right?
Yeah,
especially with 75 hard. They're like thinking about doing it.
Yep.
And then something will happen. For me, it was waking up on New Year's Day with a black eye. I'd crash my car into the front fence of my house. Fucking made an absolute cunt of myself at this party in front of like so many people I knew. And that was the turning point for me. So it was very similar for you by the sounds of it.
Exactly. So, and like I'd heard about it and I was like, that's something that I'd wanted to do. But in the back of my head, I was saying, oh, like sort of stupid, like you shouldn't do it, whatever. And then... yeah, so after that, I started 75 hard. And then by doing that, I was like, oh, getting into a bit of running again and just getting in the gym, like doing my workouts. Like I remember on day 6 or whatever, like because I was still on the tools back then. So I'd done my workout at like 3:30 in the morning, worked all day. And then actually had a job interview with my next job that I was going to go and do, like be a buyer's agent. So I think I got home from work at like 4:45, jumped on the interview and we're on the interview from like 5 to 7 on a Friday night. And I still hadn't done my 10 pages of reading, still hadn't done my second workout.
Oh man, I know those feels.
I think I'd only drank like 1.5 liters of water. So I still had so much. And I was like, but the weather outside was literally like, this is when we had the floods down in Sydney. And it was like torrential rain and the wind was just like, I was wearing like a jumper and the wind was just cutting through your jumper. Like,
this is not all that long ago, hey?
Yeah.
Like
so
2 years ago?
Not even. Like I'd probably, since I'd done 75 hard, probably like 18 months ago, like, so yeah, between 18 months to 2 years ago. So like, and I remember I was like, got to this point, I was like 7:30 and I just like finished my dinner. I was like, all right, well, you can either stop now, day 6, or you got to go out and do it. And I was like, oh, whatever. So I've just like, used to have this little loop and this is where I've done 99% of my like running when I was doing 75 hard. It was just like a 400 meter loop, 425 meters to be exact, because I'd done it that many times. It's just like, it's just burned in my brain. But I remember like 7:30, I got this head torch on and it is just pissing down. And like, I'm there just going lap after lap after lap. And I was like, man, why am I even doing this? Like, what's the point? Anyway, I got home, got it done and kept doing it. And it's like, I started this, like, I actually heard this, but I didn't realize that happens for most people, and it might have happened for you as well. Like around that day 30 stage where you just like feel invincible, and like it's literally addictive. Like, and I didn't even realize it, but like I hardly used the notes on the 75 hard app. Like I hardly wrote anything, and for that one day, I was like, I just wrote in the notes just by luck. I was like, I feel like I could run through a brick wall today. Like, feel unstoppable. And it was funny, like, probably about 6 months ago, I was listening to one of Andy Frisella's podcasts that he'd done with someone else talking about 75 hard. Yeah. And they both said, oh yeah, around day 30, I felt really good. And I was like, I wonder if I like ever wrote anything in the app when I'd done it. Click on it, day 30. Out of like all the 75 days, the only day I wrote was day 30. Yeah. I feel like invincible. And I was like, holy shit, like that's mental that like everyone sort of gets to that stage. Because like since I was 16, my body had never felt 30 days without alcohol or doing the 2 workouts or drinking. Yeah, just doing all the healthy doing all that healthy shit. So once I started doing that and I finished like the 75 hard, then I actually decided to do like the life hard. So which was goes over the whole year. Yeah, bro, yep. So I was like, I just felt so good after it. And I was like, I might have a drink. So I actually had a drink like the weekend that I finished. I went to a wedding. And I might have had not even that many beers, maybe like 6 to 8 beers, filled myself up on wedding cake, like just ate all the shit. And I remember waking up the next day, like we were in this hotel room and the smell of this room, like just reeked. Like, cause I hadn't eaten like anything like that or drank or whatever. And just like everything just perspirating out of me. I was like, holy shit. Like, and I felt disgusting. Like it wasn't even a hangover. I just like felt disgusting. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like, radio, I'm going to go and do phase 1 now. Like, so then I've done the 30 days and that brings in the cold showers and all the fun stuff now. So it's like, you have to do that. You get to do the visualization and then you get to do your 3 more critical tasks for the day. So yeah, done that. And like the cold, like I'd never done a cold shower before that. And I think I was coming into, that might have actually, I actually got pretty lucky that one. I think it might have been like February when I'd done it. So it wasn't too cold yet. Yeah. But we used to have like tank water at home. So like it was bringing it from the coldness of the ground. Yeah, like, it was cold. Yeah, yeah. And then pretty much, well, my mum started doing 75 hard when I was halfway through. Really? Yeah, which was unreal to see as well. I was probably about day 50 and then mum started doing it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then later on, my middle sister, she done it as well. So we were all sort of doing it together and it was like the gym at home, like I ended up buying a gym at home and it was just like someone was always in the gym. That's and cool. It was just like a real cool family thing to do together. Like, like even got my old man in the gym at some stages. Like he likes to have a beer and whatnot. And like to even think that he'd get in the gym is like far beyond what anyone would ever think. So he was getting in the gym, like he's just fit, like he's a tradie bloke. So it's just like, I don't even use the gym. Like, tradie fit. Yeah. So like, and he's pretty fit. Like on the tools, I'm like, man, like he just doesn't stop. Yeah. But like you get him in the gym and he's like, whew, like he's actually overseas at the moment and they done some walk yesterday. And he messaged me going, oh, like, because I gave him the old Garmin watch. And he's like, Mum took him on a hike and he's like, oh, tried to kill me today. Like his heart rate was at like 185 and whatnot, doing this hike. So I was like, oh yeah, that'll teach you. Like, 100%. But like, it was just a really good, like, we actually had so much fun. Like, even though you're doing something so difficult, like it's a real bonding experience because you all know how tough it is. Yeah. So then, I started like kept doing the life hard stuff. And like I just like, once I was doing that, I was like, oh, what else can I do? Like, and then one of my mates was like, oh, you should get a bike. And just him and his family were doing a Sunday bike ride. They just go and do 40K. And I was like, oh yeah, like sounds fun. Like, do just go for a bike ride. And then once I got the bike, I actually come across the Iron Cowboys documentary of the 50-50-50, which is 50 states of America, 50 full Ironmans in 50 days. Right. So yeah. It's
I've never heard of that. That's fucking hectic.
one of the most crazy documentaries I've ever seen. Like literally, he's living off an hour and a half to 2 hours of sleep every night. Like to go all around. Like he had to start in Hawaii at 12:01 in the morning, do a full Ironman. Then I think he flew to Alaska to do another full Ironman, and then flew to wherever they started in the RV to then drive around America. So I saw that just as I got my bike, and I was like, that is sick.
Yeah.
I was like, that is just like mental. And then as soon as I saw that, I think I watched it like 3 times in that week.
Yeah. What's it called?
It's 50, 50, 50. The Iron Cowboy. I think he calls it redefining impossible.
Okay.
Because like you look at that and you think,
watch that.
yeah, man, it's unreal. It is honestly like one of the best, like to see that someone can put their body through that. Like he gets to day 22 or whatever, and the news come and interview him to try and raise a bit of awareness, but he is so drained that he can't even talk. The interviewer goes like, oh, James, like you're doing so well. Like, how do you feel? And like his body's moving, but he just like looks at the camera and goes, like just mouth open, just does not say a word. And I'm like, he's still doing the Ironmans every single day. And it's just like,
but he's just a shell of a man.
He's just a shell. Yeah, literally. Like his body just like, and his brain obviously just knew I just got to keep going and doing this every day.
Yeah.
And talking's not something that I can do at the
Life, well, that's the thing. The brain conserves energy. That's why we're creatures of laziness. You know, we have the habits we do, the things we do on a day-to-day basis, because rather than thinking about it, that's the thought process. That's using energy.
Yeah.
So how can we conserve energy? It's like, well, obviously in his perspective, in his situation, it was don't say any fucking words. Do not fucking move your mouth too much.
Oh, just stare straight through the air. It's one of the funny. And she just sort of like
look said it all.
Yeah.
Look said it all.
And she just looks back at the camera and goes, "Okay, we'll send it back to you guys." Like. It's one of the funniest things, and it's like to think that someone like, so yeah, I was just like incredibly inspired by that. So
of course, that's crazy.
When I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to a triathlon club. And literally, I hadn't done a triathlon ever. Like I'd never swam. Like since I'd left school, I reckon I'd probably done 2 swimming carnivals at school.
Yeah.
And even then I sucked. Like that was one thing.
Thinker than a swimmer.
Yeah. Like that was one thing. Like Jess, my middle sister, she's just like really elegant in the water.
Yeah.
Me and my younger sister Liz just never got swimming. Like mum and dad would just laugh at us trying to swim. Like literally just like arms and legs everywhere.
I'm going to drown, but wouldn't put you in a race.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. Like you do a swimming carnival and I'd just get in there and be going hard out and you get 20 meters down the pool and you're like, oh my God, I'm about to like I am struggling. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'll go to this triathlon club and like how hard's a triathlon? So before I'd even done one triathlon, I was like talking to a couple of people. It's like, oh, I want to do an Ironman. Like, and everyone's sort of looking at me like, oh, like you've done triathlons before. I was like, oh no, like it was like a super sprint race. So it was like I think it was like a 300 meter, like you'd swim in the pool. It was just like a little club meet. So it was like a 300 meter swim, maybe a 20K bike ride, followed by a 4K run or whatever. Like it was just a little weekend. It was sort of like we met up for a mega run. That's what they do for a triathlon.
Yeah.
And like I'm saying this to everyone's sort of looking at me like, do you know how far like an Ironman is? I was like, oh, I've seen these distances. Like, and
you had no concept. You couldn't grasp the concept of how far that actually is.
Yeah, I had no idea. Because like even then, like when I was still doing 75 hard, the longest I'd ever ran was like 10K. So like as soon as my 45 minutes was up, I was like, all right, like I'm done. I don't need it. Like,
well, pitch off that, boys.
Yeah. That'll do the loop because I'm on a loop. So it's like, yep. Like I haven't ran back and out. I'm like, my loop. I'll just finish that loop and I'm in the ute. I'm back home. Like, so I'd never ran like over 10K or anything.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my coach now. And so I'm talking to people and I'm like, oh, who coaches around here? They're like, oh, like go and speak to Dave and see what he says. And I like walk over to Dave. I'm like, oh, how you going, mate? Like, I want to do an Ironman by the end of this year. And he like sort of looks at me like, are you sure? And I'm like, oh yeah. And he's like, well, how about? He's like, he's like, do you have any experience whatsoever? And I was like, no. He's like, well, how about you finish the race and we'll see how you feel after it. Anyway, like
put those training wheels on.
Yeah. Like literally, I could hardly even ride the bike at this stage. Like it was actually like, I didn't stack it, but I was pretty close, like maybe twice or 3 times, like on my first time, like trying to do clip-ins and
the clip and that.
Well, with the cleats. So the first time I ever got on a road bike, I actually stacked it. Before I'd even ridden a meter, I'd stacked it.
Yeah.
Because I clipped in and I forgot about the clip ins and I just went bang, fell straight.
Put your foot down?
Literally went to put my foot down and just like fell straight on and everyone that was with one of my good mates and his families. They were all just laughing. So, after I'd done that little sprint, I was like, oh shit, this is hard.
Yeah.
So, and then he was like, he goes, I don't want to train you for a full. He's like, because you're just not, he's like, you could go and do it. He's like, you can go and suffer and do it. He's like, but he's like, you would not enjoy the training whatsoever. He's like, you're literally at ground zero. He's like, to bring you up to, for me, if I was going to over at the end of the year, it probably would have taken me 13, 14 hours. He's like, for you to go from ground zero to a 14-hour, it's like you will not enjoy anything and you'll just hate it and you'll never do one again. Which was really lucky because we ended up just training for a half Ironman. And even then, my body was just like not prepared for any of the trainings. Like straight away, I was getting like, my Achilles was flaring up. I got plantar fasciitis. Like I was getting like heaps of little niggles. Like
things that you wouldn't have normally had because of the amount of intensity you put in your body over time. Right?
Exactly, yeah. So, and it was a great call by him because now I still love it. Like, so I ended up going and doing the half Ironman, and that was in September at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the worst things he could have done because actually I was like so mindset of like just going and doing big, and then we done the half Ironman, and he's just like, oh, you should just still come and swim like until you figure out what your next race is.
Yeah. So
I'd done the half Ironman in 5 hours, 15 minutes. So it's not nothing great, but it's not shit either, like middle of the pack sort of thing. So, and I was pretty happy with like what I'd done from where I'd come from to be able to do that. Like even on the half Ironman, that was my first ever half marathon. So like in that was like the longest distance I'd swam straight through, I'd ridden straight through, and I'd ran straight through. And it was like a hard 5 hours and 50, like I'd redlined. So,
as you would, man. It's a fucking lot.
Yeah.
So just for people that don't know the distances for Ironmans.
Yep.
So what's a half and what's a full?
So a half Ironman, you're going to have a 1.9K swim, a 90K bike ride, and then a 20K run. Mm-hmm. And then for a full, you've got a 3.8K swim, 180K bike ride, and a 42.2K run, full marathon.
Full marathon, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lot, yeah.
If anyone that's done a marathon, they know what a marathon is worth. If anyone does like open ocean swimming, it's a fucking lot. And for big bike rides, man, that drains you.
Yeah. So
all those
to jam them all into one, it's a brutal thing. And like that's the thing you don't realize as well, because obviously, like I was like, oh, I can run, but it's like, can you run after then being on a bike for 2.5 hours or 3 hours or 3.5 hours? Like, how do you you might think your legs are going to pull up, but that was one thing I learned in the race. Like, I was expecting to go like 3 hours if I had a really good bike time. Ended up doing like 2 hours 43. So like I pushed it really hard on the bike, probably a lot harder than I should have, because then I got off for the run. And the first K, I was like, oh, I am going to smash this. Like, I'm going to smash my time that I set out for myself. And rookie error as well, like how they say, never do nothing new on the first, like, on your race day. Yeah. I'd actually put elastic laces in my shoes so I could just slip my shoes on. And they, like, so I could just slip them on and then...
You had the support that you would have...
Well, it ended up being way too tight. So, like, I'd swelled up. So my foot had swelled up on the 3 hours of the bike.
Yeah.
And then I'd got out and started doing the run, and I got like a K1.5 in, and I was like, every step that I was taking felt like my feet were breaking. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I don't think I can do 20K of this. And like, even like I knew mentally I'm tough. And like my parents, they reckon when they saw me at the 2K point, they're like, oh shit, like he is hurting. So I got to a stage where I just had to bust my shoelaces off and like run the rest of the race, the rest of the 17K with no shoelaces. Cause I was like, it just felt like, because I was like, that is a prime example of what not to do. Yeah. But it's like I can't be told. I'm one of those people that's, you can go and tell them what's not
right, bro.
to
You
do.
learn for yourself. It's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I learned the hard way. Yeah. Yeah. So now I'm like, anyone that talks about like going, oh, I'm going to try these gels when I race, I'm like, just try them at least one session before, like just anything, just try it once. Cause like, I was like, I've learned the hard way. Like you don't want to do it on the first time you go out and race. So it's even like someone wearing new shoes on a race. It's like, just wear them a couple of times before you go and race.
Yeah. I've made both those mistakes in one run. So we
Oh.
were setting out for our first marathon, and conditions were less than ideal. It was literally like 100 mil of rain in like 3 hours. And we're up at 3 o'clock in the morning. The rain's sideways. I've got brand new shoes.
Yeah.
I've got gels that I've never used before. Right. And I'm really caffeine sensitive.
Yeah, yeah.
So I took these fucking, they were chews, these Cliff chews.
Oh,
and they're fucking
yeah.
mad. They taste
Yeah.
like Starburst, right? I've eaten them. And I had like 2 or 3 of the chews. It's like 5 in a packet.
Yep.
And within like half an hour, I was going to shit myself. I'm like, this is fucking
Oh,
It was bad, bro.
It
So,
is
yeah.
the worst thing to like.
I wish I got that advice earlier on and
Oh,
listened
yeah.
to it.
Yeah, yeah, and listen, like you can get all the advice in the world,
Exactly right,
but
yeah.
you got to listen to it,
Yeah.
like for it to actually mean anything. But yeah, it's so funny. Like even when we're doing the race, that's why they've got like portaloos all over the track.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
'cause so, it happens to so many people. Like even like I've been watching. Like now that I'm like enjoy triathlon, I watch pro races, and there is like literally pros that are so fit. Sometimes they can't even finish a full Ironman because they just get it wrong, or they have too much caffeine, or at the start of the race,
Yeah.
and then their guts are playing up on them the whole race.
Man,
Or
yeah, I get that. I get
Yeah.
that. Especially for someone that's caffeine sensitive, bro. Like if I have any little bit of caffeine, it's like more than like 50 milligrams.
yeah,
I'm fucked. I'm wired.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
like anxiety central, and like my guts are just like, ba-bam.
yeah.
So, yeah. So you did your first half Ironman last year.
Yep.
Didn't go for the full.
Nah,
And since then, how many trials have you done?
none since then.
Right.
So since then, I was so as soon as I finished it, I was like, my coach was like, you got to have 2 weeks off. He's like, you've just done I think we've done a 12-week training block or whatever. And to come from no one who,
So 12-week training block for a half Ironman.
yeah.
That's
Which-
a lot less than what I would have
Which
thought.
I'd done
It would have
a,
been quite intense, yeah?
yep. So it was still pretty tough, and that hence why I had a couple of injuries along the way.
Yeah.
And that also shows that I was nowhere near ready to go and do a full Ironman. Like, you got to pay some sort of respect to the distance.
Yeah, man.
And,
I think that's 100% correct.
But then once I finished it, I was like, so I had those 2 weeks off, and it drove me crazy because I was like, oh, what can I do? What can I do? And then one of my mates, he'd signed up for Mount Kosciosko 100K during the start of the year at some stage, and we were actually going to gym together at Evolve. So like we had a little group of like 3 of us, and we're getting trained by Luke at Evolve down in Sydney. And it was just like the bunch of boys that we'd never met before training together on a Tuesday. Oh, it might have been a Monday night and a Wednesday night at Cronulla. Like we're just training together, and he was actually meant to do the half Ironman at Western Sydney, but he had to pull out because he was injured. And he's like, to me, he's like, oh, well, you should still do Mount Kosciosko. He's like, I'm doing Mount Kosciosko. He's like, I'm coming off an injury. He's like, surely you can do it. And like, I was like,
Pretty much called you out.
yeah. And I'm still thinking, I'm like, shit, it's a long way still. Like, I was like,
100K, bro.
yeah. So I was like, oh, stuff it, why not? Like, so I chucked my name down. And because people sort of get to that stage, I think I might have been 7 weeks out from Mount Kosciosko at that stage. And the longest I'd still ran was that 21K that I'd done on my half Ironman.
Crazy.
And I was like, if I can get a ticket, I'll do it. And he's like, yeah. He's like, man, people are selling tickets left, right, and center because they buy them at the start of the year when they come on sale.
I think it's a good idea.
They think it's a great idea. Yeah. I should sign up for Mount Kosciosko, like limited amounts of tickets.
Post all over Instagram.
Yeah.
Don't show up.
Yep. Screenshot of the. I'm going to do Mount Kosciosko 100K. And then he's like, man, people are pulling out left, right, and center. He's like, I add you to the Facebook group, and within 2 minutes, I'd had a ticket. Like, I just chucked up there saying, anyone looking to sell a ticket, I had like 4 DMs. Like, people, because obviously,
Quick enough.
well, yeah, they go, oh shit, like, I'm going to downgrade to the 50K or whatnot, whatever it is, because it's capped off at a certain amount.
It's a fucking big thing, bro.
Yeah.
So, like, Kosciuszko is what, the highest point
In
highest peak
Australia. Yeah.
So, like, summer, it's fucking snowing.
Well, it's not meant to be. So this is the thing.
Right.
This is the thing. So once I sign up and then I go back to my triathlon coach, I'm like, oh, I'm looking at him. This is when we go to the pools, and because I hadn't really been training for triathlon. He's like, oh, just come for a swim and just stay fit, like stay swim ready or whatnot.
ready,
Yeah. So like we're there, and in the middle of the swim session, I go, oh, what are your thoughts about running 100K? And like, he like looks at me, he goes, wait, what? Why? I was like, I just signed up for 100K as I was like diving off to go. As I was diving to go and do my next lap.
Oh, man.
And like, so let that sit with him for a couple of minutes while we come back.
Yeah.
He looks at me and goes, did you say you signed up for 100K or you're thinking about it? I was like, I signed up for Mount Kosciosko in December.
Not just any 100K,
Yeah.
like probably the hardest in Australia.
Well, yeah, or there's some other ones, but like, yeah, it's one of the harder ones
One
in
of the
Australia.
hardest,
Yeah. And he's like looking at me, he's like, why? And I was like, oh, one of my mates sort of like said I should do it. And
why not, right?
Yeah, why not? Like, that's the thing. But, and hence how he's learned
I love that about you, Layne. I fucking love that about you.
He's learned how to coach me now. And, but like, obviously he didn't know me from a bar of soap until you start seeing people do something, you don't know what people are capable of.
Yeah.
Or how they're wired.
Exactly. Right.
And like, because I've always been wired to do that biggest and next best thing. But he didn't know that about me. He just thinks I'm just a shit
Joe
kicker.
Blow
Yeah. Just a Joe Blow, like,
yeah.
oh yeah, he done the half Ironman, good on him. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't have that much ticker or whatever it is that he could be thinking. So he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, but if you want to, I was like, you can either coach me or I'll do it myself. I was like, I got no idea. So I'd rather you coach me, but
I'll for you to be on board.
I was like, you can call me a dickhead and I'll happily go and do my own shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'll coach you. And I was like, oh, but no rush to get me a trainer plan. He looks at me and goes, it's a rush. He's like,
how long did you have? So September you ran your first half Ironman, then December was
Mount Kosciosko. So I think I had about 6.5 or 7 weeks of training. and so I was bugger all. And he was like,
in the grand scheme of things, because you got to take into consideration taper week.
Well, that was the thing we didn't. Well, it was sort of a taper week, but it wasn't like, I look at it now and I'm like, man, what was I doing? Like, it was one of those things. I was just like, we're just going to try and build as many Ks in your legs.
That's it.
As quick as possible. Yep. And like, the thing is as well, I was prepared to get injured. I was like, this is going to break me pretty much. Like, so it was only 2 weeks into it because like when I was doing my triathlon stuff, my training, like my run weeks, I was probably like, for a long run, I think I worked up to like 15K. And I might have been doing like 2 5K runs during the week. So even at my biggest run week during the triathlon training for the half Ironman, might have been like a 25K week. The first week of training that we done, I think I done like 65K. And then like, bang, I got plantar fasciitis. And I was like, okay, that's not good.
Yeah.
And then...
that was coming back from obviously the Ironman training you were doing anyway.
Well, yep. And then, so I was like, that's not good. Like, I knew this can be really painful. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I've still got to train it. Like, it is what it is. And I was really lucky that he sort of said, his training stuff was just all on hour based. So it was like the first week of training I think we done might have been 10 hours of running.
Yeah.
So like, he was like, I don't care where you run, whatever pace you run, I'd prefer you go and do hills, whatever. He's just like, this is just, if you run, you walk, you do whatever, just like get time on your legs. Like, whatever it was. So yeah, that first week I think I done 65K. Then the next week it might have been 11 hours. And I was still pushing through plantar fasciitis, and then my Achilles blew up. So like that was just like flared up right through the inside of my Achilles. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is getting a bit like to the stages where trying to go out and do something, it was painful. Like even just to walk. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is not good. Like every morning I'm looking, I'm like, righty, I've got, and the good way that we broke it up was, it was say like, I think when we started, it might have been like a Tuesday was an hour run. Maybe my Tuesday morning was an hour run. Tuesday Arvo was an hour run. And then maybe it might have been like Thursday morning was an hour and a half. And then we do like back-to-back runs over the weekend. Yeah. So it was like, say the first weekend was an hour on Saturday morning, hour Saturday Arvo, hour Sunday morning, hour Sunday Arvo, or something to that degree. And then we just kept building up along that. So it was always on tired legs. So it wasn't like, oh, we're just going to go and do one big session of 6 hours here. And then you've got the rest of the week to recover. So then you're feeling fresh. You're like, whereas my legs were just always thrashed. So I was going to the physio and they were giving me like the heel cups, which actually worked really well. So it was just like lift your heel up so your Achilles aren't getting as much tension on them.
Okay.
So that allowed me to actually train on it. And then I was just like, I literally had my ankle strapped for 6 weeks straight. So because like that would give me a bit of stability.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then it wouldn't like put like, because it was actually on the inside of my Achilles. So it was like, they'd give you a bit of stability to go and run or do whatever. Yeah, and because, and because a lot of the runs I was doing was like trail runs as well. You got the rocks and
different kettle of fish once
again. Yeah, exactly. So we kept on doing that and I was like, oh, you know what? Like I'd kept on running to a stage where I was like, the injury had gone, well, like not gone away, but it wasn't hurting. It was just like my Achilles felt really loose, and it was just like, oh, I can run on it. Like, I'll just strap my ankle and nothing bad's going to happen. So, like, I just...
Magic Band-Aid.
Well, that's the thing. I just trained, like, me to not feel as much pain. I was like, you know what? Like, you can just keep getting over it. So, the thing was, like, over the training, but the longest run I'd actually done, like, continuous was, like, maybe 20K. But, like, then it might have been, like, another 15K that Arvo. So, I was, like, always on sore legs. But I'd never... Before I'd done kosciosko, I think the longest run I'd done was 23K. Yeah. As a continuous run. Yeah. So I remember getting there like 2 days before, and like you said, it should be it wasn't meant to be snowing. So kosciosko,
it's got to be cold either way, right?
Well, no, it's actually meant to be pretty nice in summer. Like it's meant to be like 25 degrees. Like so, it's actually meant to be not too bad. Or it could have actually even meant to be hotter, I thought. But we get like 3 weeks out, and people are putting up videos of like knee-deep snow there.
Yeah, bro, I remember seeing.
And I was like, because they send you out this whole list of like all these clothes to buy. Yeah. And I'm like, it's going to be middle of summer. It's not like, I'm not going to need that. Like, I'm not going to need good quality shit. So I just went and brought cheap stuff. I was like, oh, whatever. Yeah.
He's got the snow sail on in summer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, literally, I was just like buying all of his shit stuff because I'm like, I'm going to run in shirt and shorts. And then, we get to 2 weeks out, and it's still like, people are saying, oh, look at the snow. And then they end up having to change the course 3 days before it. So,
wow, so that's pretty swift.
Yeah. Like, it was, and that was actually one of the first times, like, I'd been at the snow. So, like, as you run up.
How was he?
Well, I'd seen snow before, but it was the first time I'd, like, felt snow.
Oh, didn't it? Yeah.
So, like, we drove through when I was 17, we drove through like Yosemite National Park in America. Okay. And it was just like a bit of snow at the top of the peak. So like we drove that road where we could see the snow. So this was like the first time I'd been to the snow, like not planned, but like we're driving through to get to, I think it was at Thredbo where they had to change the start line to, we're driving a Thredbo and it's like proper snowing on the road. And I'm like, oh shit, this is going to be
the mist of summer.
Yeah.
Like literally like, I'm pretty sure that was like the 15th or 16th.
Yeah, 15th. 15th. I think mine is 16th of December.
Yeah.
And so like I had my best mate, my sister, and then my two parents in the car. Like they crewed me, and like we had we had the best time. Like you ask anyone on that course, like they knew who was my crew because like they were doing a dress up at every checkpoint. Yeah. It was the funniest shit. Like, so my best mate was dressing up in like a red dress and he'd have like the long hair and like have heels on or like, and then like my old man dressed up as a sailor and had my budgie smugglers on and just like.
Bro, where did that come from? Where did that idea to have them dressing up come from? That's fucking cool.
Because we knew it was going to be a big day for him, and I was like, between everything, they were like, oh, well, we just may as well have fun as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, what's the point of like, so they're there and they're like dressed as eggplants and like just the stupidest shit. Like, it was so funny. Like, so then they had like party shirts and all these different stops along there, which by the end of it, like I could be running along and it's actually like when I met Meg and Will and whatnot, they're like, oh, they're like, oh, you got crew supporting you and whatnot. I'm like, oh yeah, have you seen those people dressing up? They're like,
seen the eggplant?
Yeah. You seen the eggplant? Or you seen that really good looking bloke? Yeah, no, that's my mate. So they're like, oh well, like everyone, it was like a celebrity thing because everyone's like, oh, those people are so funny, like, because you're down in the dumps, like when you hurt them. So like by the time I hit 45K, I was like, I think I'm going to be pulling out of this thing. Like my knees were blown up.
Rightfully so, man.
Yeah, and I was like, oh. Like, there's even an Instagram, like, I think I put on my story when I done my first marathon. I was like, oh, just done my first marathon. I was like, still got another 60K to go. And then it was like, oh.
Still got another one of those at least.
Yeah. And then when I done my second marathon, I was like, oh, just done my second marathon. That was a little bit less fun. Like, so.
Ultra, yay.
Yeah. So I'd done everything all in one go. And I was like, but like, the stage I was hitting, like, I think the worst one I come into, I was like, the 63K checkpoint. I walked in there. And I was just dragging my feet because we just done like this big descent for like 8K. And it was just,
been a lot on your knees,
just busting my knees. Like, and I wasn't really prepared for it. I was doing a lot of uphill training, but like not much of that. There was an 8K just downhill. Yeah. And it busted me. I was like, because everyone at the start line saying, oh yeah, make sure you run the uphills, run the downhills, walk the uphills. Yeah. That's what everyone's saying. So I'm like, everyone's just flying past me down this downhill. And I'm like trying to run. And I'm like, oh, like my knees are just busted. Yeah. And as I come into the 63K checkpoint, like I'm just dragging my feet. And everyone's like trying to be positive, and mum and dad were like, fuck, if you were ever going to pull out, that was going to be a stage. Like, you just walked in there and you just looked like death warmed up.
Yeah.
But it was so weird. Like, literally, I'd walked in there and I'd had a no-do's like maybe 45 minutes before, and I was like, oh, this thing's not going to make any difference. I was like, but it hadn't kicked in yet. And then literally as I'm there, Dad had cooked sausages or whatnot. So I'd had a sausage, I had a couple of cookies and that, and I was like, oh, I'm going to shit myself. So like, I had to run to the toilet. I had to run to the toilet. As I came out of the toilet, I was like, obviously the no-nos kicked in. I was like, let's go. So like the thing was, from the 63, it was like the next checkpoint was the 70K checkpoint. So like I'd come out of there and I was just like, I had so much energy. Like as it hit me, I was like beaming. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, I'm good to go. I was like, I mean, this is the next checkpoint, 7K down the road. So I just grabbed my shit and off I go. And then as I get to the checkpoint, I realized like that checkpoint they actually can't get to because it's like you had to go down a creek or whatnot.
Yeah.
And no spectators.
No access by road.
Yeah. So there's no access, and so the spectators couldn't get there.
Wow.
But then the next one was at another like 21. It might have been either 18 or 21K to the next checkpoint. So I ring and I'm like, you aren't going to meet me for another 3 hours. So I was like,
see you on the other side.
Yeah. So like, I think that one was the 89K checkpoint.
Yeah.
And this is where I started meeting Megan Will a fair bit, because like you get to a stage where everyone that's around you is going to be around you for the finish. Like,
you're sort of in a pack.
You're sort of like,
find your group.
you can see someone 200 meters ahead or whatever it is. Like you're all around that same pace.
Yeah.
So that's where I met Megan Will, and we sort of started having a conversation, and then when we got to that 70K checkpoint, they were like, oh, we're just going to hit the checkpoint and go back out. And I also met another bloke, and like we were having a chat. I was like, oh, what are you going to do? He's like, oh, I'm just going to grab a quick feed, like, because that's the only place you can get food at the checkpoints. And I was like, yeah, I might grab a quick feed as well. So Megan Will they went back out, and then the bloke I was with, he'd actually torn his meniscus like a couple of weeks before. So he's like, meniscus was like 30%. And he was like, oh, he goes, I had the ticket. So he thought, like, I may as well just do it anyway. I'm like, I'm there, I'm like in excruciating pain. I'm like, I can only imagine what you're in. Like, you've torn your meniscus and like just, I was like, that doesn't even, I can't even comprehend that. And he's like, once he sat down, he's like, I'm actually going to take a bit longer. He's like, I'll catch up to you. Because he was actually a really good runner before he'd done his, like, he was expecting to go, he would have done around me, which was like 15 hours and 45 minutes. I think he was expecting to go like 12 hours, 11 hours. So like quite a big difference. So like I just went off by myself, caught up to Megan Will, and then I ended up actually overtaking them. And then like once I overtook them, I saw no one for like 10, 12K, which is like nearly 2 hours. And I was like, you start questioning, am I on the right path? Like, you go, I can see all these pink little flags everywhere. But you're going,
where is everyone?
But where is it? Like when on the start line, you got, I think, 750 people there between the miler and the 100K. Like you got a lot of people there.
Yeah.
You're like, why can't I see anyone? I haven't taken a wrong turn or anything, surely. And then the bloke who was winning the miler come behind me and literally was sprinting past me. Like I'd never seen, like, because I sort of looked behind, I could hear noise coming. I'm like, this bloke's flying. I was like, there is no way I've been in front of this bloke the whole time. And as he comes, like, he's got this guy behind him with his camera, just putting along behind him, and he was his support crew, his crew, his pace or whatever. And like this bloke, like making it look effortless. Like I think over the 100 miles, he averaged like a 5-minute K pace with 3,500 meters of elevation.
That's fucking out.
So like, and the terrain that it was like running on, it's like, I don't know how you could even run at a fight. Like I couldn't sprint a 5-minute K pace through some of that terrain.
Yeah.
So when I saw him overtake me and I realized he was a miler, I was like, oh my God. Like I was only up to maybe like 80K at that point. I was like, that bloke's went and done another 60K on top of me.
Yeah.
And he's already overtaken me. Like just machine athlete, like just absolute.
Out of control shit.
Yeah. You look at that and you go, wow. It is mental. And then, like once we started getting to the 90K point, that's when Megan Will caught up to me. And then I was like, oh, we may as well do the last 10K together.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Which ended up taking like 3 hours or 2.5 hours or something stupid, whatever it was, because like that's when it got dark. And then literally, because they'd been doing that track the last couple of days, they just worn the track down like, because you had the snow and everything, the track was just like a mud pit. And you couldn't see, like, only off your head torch, and like it took ages. Yeah,
hoping for the best.
Yeah. Like my mate who convinced me to do it. One of his mates ended up getting lost, and by coincidence, they walked into each other. His mate was going the wrong way down the path. He'd already called his dad saying, "I'm pulling out. Like, pick me up at the next checkpoint," but he couldn't find the next checkpoint. And it was just by luck that he was actually on the path.
So we skipped the checkpoint pretty much.
Pretty much skipped the checkpoint, and his mate, like, he'd cut off 15K off the track.
I'm not talking about that, but
his mate was like, "I don't care, I just want to get home." And he's like, "It's going to be quicker for you to come to the finish line than try and find that other checkpoint." But like, it was so dark and that out there, like, it was, you could easily see how people could get lost.
Yeah,
in that.
100%.
So yeah, like, done that, finished with Megan Will, like, it was just like so sick to, once I got to the end of that, I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, I've always seen the photos of you.
In your budgies,
I'll chuck those up on here.
Yeah, like in the budgies, like, because that was one of my things. Like, I've always worn budgies everywhere, so I was like, I'll
You
just.
wearing them right now?
No, I'm not.
I was going to say, get them out.
Getting out for the potty listeners. But I had my wanker ones on, the watermelon with the anchors. I had them for me swim this morning. But so like once I done that, I was like, that really opened up to like, oh shit. Because like once I finished it, it was pretty funny. Like, obviously I hit that wall at like 63K where I was like, oh, I don't know how much further I can go. Yeah. But when I hit that 100K point, I was like, oh, I could probably go and finish a miler. Like, for some reason, I was just like, it wasn't that bad. Like, I was
pushed through the pain.
Like, my body, like, and then I was thinking, like, okay, the next day I'm going to be extremely sore. The next day I woke up and we actually done a Santa pub crawl through the, like, I wasn't drinking, but like me and me mates, they were doing a Santa pub crawl through Jindy. Yeah. Like, we went to go to the cafe that next morning, and as I'm like, we're driving down to the cafe, I see these guys dressed up as Santa. Yeah. And I'm like, they do a Santa pub crawl in the middle of Jindabyne, like middle of nowhere. Yeah. So like, the next day I was like, it was like really opened up my mind, because I was like, holy shit, like my body can do so much more without, like, I had a sore, like, actually the worst thing I got was arse crack chafe.
Oh, isn't that the worst? Or like in between, like just under the ball sack?
Not even like full, like butthole chafe. Like, literally, it was like, I never thought it was a thing, and I didn't even realize it on the race. Yeah. Until I got home and went to have a shower. Yeah. And like the pain, I couldn't, the burn. Yeah. So I had to like just shower the front of my body. I couldn't turn around and have water running down my butt crack.
Look, I get that. I'm not to that extreme, obviously. I have done a while, but like even on Maras and that, like the injuries you get, like what that I've found I got, are like things like chafe, or like, you know, leaves rubbing together, shit like that, like things you would not expect. Toenails jamming into the end of the shoe, bro. I've literally still got black toenails from that. Oh,
mate, even yesterday I got like that there is chafe. Yeah, like from your armpit chafe. Like, I was running without a shirt on, and I just like, obviously didn't sweat enough to make it. Like, I was like, what?
Wasn't working hard enough.
Yeah, I know, I was just cruising. Just having a chat. But too busy talking.
Might as well be walking.
Oh, well, really, like literally, it gets to that stage where I go out and like, I went with Corey and Dave.
Yeah, I saw that actually.
From Mega Run, and I was like, we went for a 15K run, but it's like, it's just how you talk. We didn't shut up the whole time, and it's just like, even though like I look at it now, I'm like, I think 2 years ago I could go for a 15K social run or whatever you call it, like
mid conversation,
like it's just mind boggling to even think. So once I crossed that line at Mount Kosciosko, I was like, oh, like, wonder what I could do next, sort of thing. And like I'd been playing around with the idea of what I wanted to do, because even before I'd done the half Ironman, I'd already told my coach about the first idea of it was 30 half Ironmans in 30 days, do it over a month. And I think the first time I told him, it was before I'd done the half Ironman. I was like, I reckon we should do it in March. And like, this is when I was still back at home and whatnot. And he's like, you haven't even done one half Ironman yet. He's like, why do you want to do that to yourself? And I was like, I just want to do more. And he's like, why don't you just go and do one? And then like once I'd done the one, then ended up doing, like, I went away from triathlon, done the 100K. And then once I'd done the 100K, I was like, okay, I'm definitely doing, like, I want to go and do these consecutive half Ironmans.
So just quickly, let's recap, okay? So
Yeah.
you're doing something really fucking big in September. It's something like fucking huge you've been training for, you know, obviously since your first half Ironman. But prior to doing this thing that we're going to talk about in a second, you've only done one half Ironman.
Yep.
And prior to then running Cosy, the longest distance you'd run, obviously Cosy being 100 Ks of terrain, was like 23 Ks.
3K.
And then you ran 100.
Yeah.
So now you've got this big thing coming up in September.
Yep.
Right? Where you're going to be running 36 half Ironmans in 36 days for cystic fibrosis. And the biggest thing you've done prior to that was literally one half Ironman.
Half Ironman. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fucking out there, bro. So tell me more about, obviously, the cause and that sort of stuff, because we'll talk more about the thing itself in a second, but the cause. So cystic fibrosis, why is it something that's so important to you?
The thing is, once I actually did go away from what I was doing and I started doing the running and whatnot, I joined to a run club down at Wollongong. Yeah. And I met my mate down there, Brad Dryber. And to be fair, like, you know, when you just have that instant click with someone. Yeah, right, dude. And me and him were just chatting away and whatnot. And we were like, oh, we may as well go for brekkie after him and one of my mates, Eli. And we just went for brekkie. And as we're having brekkie, he pulls out like all these tablets. And I was like, I didn't want to ask, like, if he wanted to tell me, he would tell me whatnot. But I was like, oh, like, seems a bit strange. And then like we kept talking. He's like, oh yeah, like I've got a podcast where I talk about this, that, and the other.
This is your friend you're talking about prior to us jumping on today.
Yeah. So, cool. And he's got cystic fibrosis. So, but I didn't know any of this at this stage, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to ask a question, whatnot. And I didn't even know what CF was. So like he didn't even mention it to me, but I didn't even know what it was. And so like as we leave, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like I'll look up his podcast, and then I clicked on it, and it starts talking about him having CF, and he's got a few people on his podcast and whatnot. And like, I was like, holy shit, like this guy, his upbringing is just like brought up, like his parents done an amazing job of bringing him up as a normal person, but like he's like as a normal human, like, but his parents got told at 3 weeks of age, he would be better off having a terminal illness that would either kill him or he'd get over than living with CF.
That's heavy, yeah.
So like one of the first doctors I went to told him that, and they're like, we're not letting him live with that idea of life. Like, so they had like, and he does a lot of talking about it. Like he calls it now blessed with bleeding lungs. Yeah. Like he's got the worst type of CF where, I don't want to stuff it up, but pretty sure he's got like diabetes and he's got like liver, problems as well. Like at the age of 9, his liver was like as bad as someone who was an alcoholic for 30 years. Like he just had all these problems that had then come from CF, which like CF, it's just like your mucus doesn't break down in your body. Yeah. So it attacks all your like major organs, like your lungs. And so you just like get really clogged up lungs and like every...
And it's a hereditary disease, is it?
Yes. And no two cases of CF are the exact same because it's like it's different genes that are like all like mixed and matched. Yeah. So there's no like one blanket fix for CF. And so like when I heard about it, I was just like, oh my God, like I started looking into it, and one of the bits that I found, it was like, this was obviously research done from years before, but I was talking about like the average lifespan was 25 years of age. Yeah. And this is before they got this new drug that had come out. And I was just like, I was just talking to Brad and he's 26. I was like, so does that mean he's like knocking on death's door? Yeah. I was like, which you wouldn't be able to pick from talking to this guy. And then that just rocked me because I was like, man, I've just had this amazing conversation with someone that you like perceive as being one of your best mates for life.
Yeah, this is my dude.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like, and I just couldn't shake it. So then obviously like you start talking about it more and you find out. So like now the life expectancy with this new drug they've got, which is trifecta, it's like increased the life expectancy to 40. Yeah. Which is still like... today's days, it's like it's less than half of the what the lifespan of an Australian. So you sort of look at that and you're like, wow, like, but all the people that you meet with it, because they know, and I think like the way that he calls it, he's like, he calls it lucky to be blessed. Like he calls it blessed
It's
with
a
it.
very rare thing, right?
It's a very rare, like
100,000 people in the world or something.
Yeah. There's 3,600 people in Australia.
Yeah. I was looking at those stats.
Yeah. So you sort of look at it, and he calls it blessed, and I struggle to perceive it as like as cruel of a disease that it is, but the way that he looks at it is like it's allowed me to realize that life's only so short. Yeah. Whereas, because the average life expectancy is 80, people wait so long to go and do something.
They waste their life.
They waste their life. Whereas he's now had this realization when he was 19, like he was coughing blood up, like literally he thought he was going to die. Yeah, dude. And when he done that, he was like, that's where he left his real estate job, and he sort of started going and pursuing this podcasting life to share his story and doing his guest speaking stuff.
Yeah.
But he calls it his biggest blessing, because if it wasn't for that, like you could go and stay in that same real estate life for...
He wouldn't be where he is today, right?
Well, he wouldn't be where he is today, and he could go and literally do that same thing that he was doing until he was 60 without having to make that call. And as tough as it is to look at it like that, like it rattles me. Like it's just mind boggling. So once I started getting, like, me and Brad, like we talk a lot now. Yeah. And I've always wanted to do the half Ironmans as a challenge. And I sort of was like, oh, it'd be really cool to do it for some sort of fundraising thing.
Yeah, for a cause.
For a cause, yeah. And I just didn't know, like, what to do it for. Like, you look at your black dogs or whatnot, and they do so much well, and it's like all about helping people. But it's like so many people are raising money for that. And it's like, I want my money to go somewhere where it's like, this is actually making a real big difference. Like, it's not like just, here's $100,000 within the $100 million that they're getting donated. Yeah. Where it's like, this $100,000 that I'm trying to raise for cystic fibrosis, like that's going to make a huge difference. Like,
it's not just a drop in the pond, a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, right? It's not just a drop in the ocean. And it's like, I want to raise like awareness for it as well. So as soon as I had that idea, I rang Brad up and I was like, and he was actually one of the first people that encouraged me to go and do like the 100K. Like the first time I had that idea, he sort of looked at me and like, I think we talked about the first brekkie we had together, and he sort of looked at me like, was that just not like a 10K, one of your longest runs that you've done? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, but like by the end of the year, I'll be able to do 100K. And he was like, yeah, okay. Like, yeah. Like, what? Yeah. He, like the look of his face was like, so like to have someone like believe in, like it was still thinking like, this guy's a crackhead. Like, literally. Yeah. Like he's done he'd done a mara before and whatnot, which like, he's trying to make like an annual event where they do 42 for CF. So it's like it's a marathon event where they raise money for CF. Yeah. And so he'd done a mara before, so he knew what a mara was like. And here I am only doing 10K, saying I'm going to do 100. Yeah. And he's just to look at it, he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. But like then once we started I started training for it, he was like, whenever I was training down at Wollongong, he was there. He was next to me, like we were doing like a lot of running together. Yeah. So we got to build this really strong bond through training together. And then, once I'd done the 100K, I was like, all right. I was like, I'm not taking no for an answer this time when I tell my coach that I'm doing well, it was meant to be 30 half Ironmans in 30 days. Yeah. And then I found out the record was 35. So then I was like, well, now I'm going for 36.
Oh, yes, I love that.
So it's like, I thought the old record was like 25 in the year. So I was like, if I can do 30 in a row, then I've got the record for 30 in a row and 30 in a row and 30 in a year. But then someone had done 35 in a row. So I was like,
this is like not just in Australia, like worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide. Yeah. Yep. So I was like, I want to do this. And so I rang Brad and I was like, man, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What are your thoughts? I want to race for CF. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, lock it in. So then before I'd even told my coach, I was like, teamed up with CF. Like we'd started doing the fundraising page and everything. Yeah. And then I rang my coach and I was like, hey, I've got something to tell you. And he's like, oh.
Remember that 100?
Yeah.
Sort of deal we did?
I was like, oh, I've got something to tell you. He's like, oh, like, what's up? And I was like, oh, I've got another event that I want to do. And he's like, oh, like, what have you picked? And he's like, oh, which one? And I was like, oh, not one. I was like, oh, I want to do 36 half Ironmans in 36 days. And he's like, fuck. He's like, when? And I'm like,
the helmet on
yeah.
for the war room.
Yeah. He's like, when? And I was like, September. He's like, oh. He's like, oh, well, he's like, I think this was in March when I told him. He's like, oh, at least you give me 6 months this time rather than 6 weeks. He's like, that's heaps of time for you. So, once we started doing that, I was like, yeah, like, and to see, once I told Dave, my coach, about, because I don't, like, I sort of feel imposter syndrome to, like, say that I'm going to go and do it or whatnot. But as soon as I told him, he's like, yeah, you're doing it. He's like, don't worry about paying me. He's like, if you're doing it for a cause, he's like, you're doing it. I have full faith in you doing it. And like, that was the first realization that like people believe in me. And it's like that rocked me. I was like, oh shit. Like you sent me like this big message saying like, man, if you think you can do this, like I'm 100% behind you. Like, don't worry about paying me to coach you. Like I'm all on board with this. Like if you're saying you're going to go and raise the money for CF, like it's on. Yeah. And like, I can still remember sitting at the kitchen bench and I was like tearing up. And then like I showed my mum and like she started crying and I was like, man, like this is, it's so cool to see the power of humans. Like how, like you hear all the bad stuff, but like, but like some of the stuff that humans are like capable of doing, like
some of what we are capable of.
Like, yeah, man. Like, so like for him to show that belief in me straight away, I was like, oh, this is sick. Like this is on. So then, I was like, it's just all the training just knuckled into that. Like, I didn't want to just like go and do any other events. I was like, I want to pay this the respect that like it deserves because you can say you're going to go and do something and it's like, oh yeah, but it's, for sake's sake, it's like GC Mara in 2 weeks. It's like, everyone's like, oh, you should go and do the Mara. I'm like, yeah, but if I want to do the Mara, I'm going to go and try and do like a decent time for me. Like, and then if I go and give it a red hot crack, then it delays my training for my big goal, which is for the 36, like the 36
shiny objects, right?
Well, exactly, objects. And like that's the thing. Like, there's been so many of those little things that I was like, oh, I'd love to go and do it. Like, just even little races, like, or even just go and do like a half Ironman, or like just go and do stuff.
Bad for that shit, bro.
Yeah. It's like you're saying, like, oh, that looks really appetizing. Like, yeah. So like, well, it's even. I sort of got away with it at the start of the year when I'd done the Mega Goggins. Yeah. Like, that was out of nowhere. That was literally off a week's notice. Like, I was coming up here with the boy, like a couple of my mates to just have a weekend at Brizzy over Australia Day. And then Meg's like, oh, we're actually doing Mega Goggins this week. Do you want to just do that? So I just jumped into that. So like, I've always loved those shiny objects. And then like literally the week after I had my first CrossFit pomp. Yeah. Which I sucked at so hard. Like, it's a learning experience, and that's the thing, like, I love, as much as I love being the best in the room, I love also being the shit kicker where it's like, literally, I was the worst person there at CrossFit because like I'd only done CrossFit for like a month and a half before doing my first event. So I didn't even know what like a snatch was, but like we're in there.
I love that, bro. I fucking love
like,
that.
I'm walking around and it was like all in groups of 4, like, and it was a partner group. So it was me and my best mate. It was like all in groups of 4. And it was like this hot as shit day at the start of Feb. And it was like so hot and we're outside in the sun, like doing all these workouts. And apparently, like, I got no idea what CrossFit is like, but apparently like even the the really good guys were dropping down into this class because they're like, even that's challenging. Yeah. And like, I'm looking at some of these guys that are, like I'm competing with and I'm like, oh my God, they're jacked.
Bro, like CrossFitters in general, those motherfuckers go down to raw iron and there are some specimens.
Oh mate. So
absolute
like,
specimens down in the gym.
And the funny thing was they put up the day before saying, oh, we're going to do a giveaway, like a $200 giveaway for the best dressed. And I ring my mate, I was like, best dressed, are we on for this? And he's like, yeah, fuck, we're not going to win the CrossFit. We may as well win best dressed. So we rock up like wearing our budgie smugglers, overall suspenders, bow ties, and then like pink socks. Yeah. Like just shit that I pulled together. I was like, all right, yeah, that'll do. We also wore a tutu as well.
Oh, you got the fucking best dress.
Yeah, you got the best dress. Like, but the bullshit thing was, so these other chicks, they rock up and they were like in a black, like one piece sort of thing. And instead of us just getting the the $200 prize ended up being for like a beauty thing. So it was like for facial injections or something like that. That's what it was. And I was like, oh, still, like, I'll take it to give it to mum. Yeah. And then the guy who was running it goes, oh, like, you guys are the best dressed, so we'll only give you $100 and we'll give the chicks another $100. I was like, No. Like the
discount me on my efforts.
I was like, just because I'm a bloke, maybe I want a little bit of Botox, like here and there, you know. But no, so that was a bit of a stitch up. But
Looks like I fucking hit it. Look at this shit.
Yeah. That's the boxing for you, mate.
Yeah, bro. Stressful environments, we're all about them.
Yeah. So like, but I love being in that situation where it's like off short notice or like you're backed into a corner.
Yeah.
And like, man, it was brutal. Like I sucked ass. My best mate, he was really good, but like, there's only so much you can do in a shit team. So I love those shiny little objects. And don't worry, once I do this event, I'm keen to look forward to being sporadic and just going and doing little events like that.
Yeah.
But like, I wanted to pay this the respect that it deserves.
Of course.
Because like you look at it and it's obviously 36 days of, I don't know, it's probably going to end up being 7 hours of being either swimming, biking or running over the day. So it's going to take a fair toll. Like over a week, what's that? Like 49 hours of physical exercise for over a month straight. So like,
what, bro?
So like the body's going to like, I've got to condition my body as much as I can to try and make that as like, because in my mind, I can do it 1,000 times.
You've already done it.
I've already done it.
Yeah.
Like literally I've already done it in my mind, but it's like, you got to get there and still do it with your body first. Like, and like mentally, I know like I'm tough enough, but it's like your body's the real, like it could always just give out on you in any second. Like you've got to train as much as you can. And like even my weekends now, it's just like all training. It's just like, that's what it all just comes down to. Yeah. People are like, oh, like how's your weekend? Oh, I trained for 15 hours over the weekend. They're like, oh, sick.
Sounds riveting.
Yeah. Everyone's like 15. They're like, how do you break that down? I'm like, oh, so I rode for 7 hours over the weekend. I ran for 4 hours over the weekend. I swam for 3 hours. Like, or it's just, they're like, oh, yeah, that looks like fun. Like, but like, I also love it as well now. Like, there's literally it's one of those things where like, I genuinely just love seeing how far I can push my body. And it's like not just my body, but it's like my mental aspect as well. It's like
hugely
how much pain can I take? And like, it's like I was saying with footy, like I used to just love seeing how hard someone could hit me. And I just like love to
jump in the ring, brother.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Me too. But yeah, but I know exactly what you're saying.
But that is one thing I would like to try, because it's all about being in an environment where you're uncomfortable.
Yeah, jump in the Shark Tank, brother.
Well, and that's the thing, like I do, and that's what I want to grow into now, of always trying to put myself in situations where I'm uncomfortable. It's like even jumping on this podcast, man. It's like I'm driving over here and I'm like, ooh, turn the radio off, and I'm like, all right, what am I going to talk about or whatnot? I'm like, shit. Like even though I do my own potty, it's like, it's a whole different thing, and it's like you can go and there's a saying, and it's like you can go and scream affirmations at yourself in the mirror, but you got to go and do this shit for it to actually matter. Yeah. Like you can go and say, oh yeah, I'm the toughest motherfucker in the world 1,000 times.
Show me.
Yeah.
You got to show me.
But you've got to actually do something. Like anyone can go and scream it at the mirror.
Yeah.
But it's like, so that's what I like. I think the best way to show it is by going and doing stuff that you're uncomfortable with. For me, it's like swimming. Hate swimming. Yeah. Like, and it's so ironic because my missus is a pro swimmer. So it's like, it's so ironic. But literally I get in the water and there is no workout literally no other workout I'd pull that quick on. It's just swimming. I get in the water and I'm like, swim. And it's just like, man, it's just like, I hate being in the water. It's, with a passion. Yeah. But it's like, I'm going to go and do that for 1.9K every single day for 36 days. Like I could go and run a marathon or whatever, but it's like, I enjoy running. So it's like, do the uncomfortable shit. Like, it's like, go and do something that you really hate doing. And for me, it's swimming. Like, but then I get to also then of an Arvo, I'm going to be like bouncing around going, all right, let's go and run. Probably won't be, but
not when you're doing the 36.
Yeah, not when I'm doing the 36. I reckon it's a little bit nice. Some days I'm like, oh, I reckon I'm going to smash it. And then other days it's like when I have a big training day, you're like, oh, fuck. I come in over like an Arvo and I'm like laying on the couch stinking, and I'm like, oh. And Tay's like, you got to go have a shower. I'm like, yeah, just give me like 15. I was like, man, this is going to hurt. Like, so
Man, in boxing we have a saying, right? So like the prep's the hard work, and then ring is just having fun.
Yeah.
I don't think that applies to you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think that applies.
People say, oh yeah, that'll be you. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, nah.
It's gonna be fucking hard, bro. But like honestly, man, even just taking on that challenge is something fucking crazy. And
Yeah.
I guess that suits you perfectly because you got your own podcast and watch your crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't want to be the person who's like talking about all the time. And like I was saying before, anyone can talk about shit, but it's like until you go and then show people what, like I say, like my crazy is like I want to change the lives of millions of people. Like,
yes, bro.
And I want to be that lighthouse that everyone can see. Like I want to be the example of like me saying, look, I hate all these things, but I still go and do them every day. Like I don't want to be that bloke who goes, I'm actually really good at this and I'm only going to do this.
Yeah.
And yous are all going to think that it's hard for me, but I actually really enjoy it. And yous just don't know. I'm just going to scream at you saying, oh yeah, this is really hard, but I actually love, like I could go and run all day, every day.
Yeah.
And say, oh yeah, I love running. I love running. Like, oh, I could say I hate it, but really I love running.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when we're doing the megagons or the Cosy, it's like, as tough as it is,
enjoy it.
I literally enjoy it.
Yeah.
But like I said, get me in the water. Oh, like hate it with a passion.
Yeah.
It's like also you probably get me on the bike seat on day 5 when I've got gooch blisters. Gooch blisters or whatever I'm gonna have at that stage. Hopefully not like
touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood, whatever. Like literally, but
yeah, man.
Yeah, by the time when you're sitting on that saddle all the time and it's like, oh, do I really want to get on the bike? Or to be fair, it's probably even going to be running. Like you're probably going to have blisters or whatever it is. It's like toenails missing, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, I don't want to do it. Like,
yeah.
So it's like you can either talk about it or be about it. And I want to be about it. Like that's my crazy stuff to like show people what people are actually capable of. Because I think the thing is like, and people that might be new to meeting me go, oh, Layne's just natural. That's Layne naturally. And it's like, they never got to see where I was probably even 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, not even like, so people just have this idea of me being this is who I am.
But people from 2 years ago, say a completely different thing. It's funny how the human mind perceives what we see you as today as who you've always been, right? It's like these overnight successes. There's no such thing as an overnight success. People don't see, like, it's written up there, is it? What I practice today, no, hang on, where is it? That one over there. People are praised in public for the things they've practiced in silence for years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And that's so true. Because they say overnight success, but there's been 10 years of work or 3 years of work or 5 years of training that went into creating that one moment in time that they'll be remembered for.
If you are an overnight success, I think it's like a 99% chance that you're going to blow it anyway. If you're by chance just an overnight success, it's like people that win the lotto.
How many people that win the lottery go fucking broke like that? They're still living in the same mindset. They haven't had to do the work to get there, so they don't respect the prize that they've got.
Exactly. And this was like one of the first conversations I had with Brad. Like we were talking about like, because I didn't know he had the potty. He's like, oh yeah, with my potty, he's like, I've already put in 2 years of work and nothing's come of it. He's like, but I know once it gets big, I've put in the work. And I was like, oh, you've got a potty. I was like, that's cool. But I was like, but it makes really good sense. It's like,
lay the foundations.
Lay the foundations. And then if there is one episode that skyrockets it, then people have got all this stuff to come and look back at. And it's like, it's not like, oh, you go and do your first podcast and you're a big, like, it's like, oh, wow, that podcast was really good. And for some out of luck chance that it just went massive. And then you're like, the next week you go, oh, I really don't know how to podcast. I sort of just fluked that one. What have I done?
He just spoke and I asked 3 questions.
Maybe he could come on every week.
A couple of those ones.
So it's one of those things. It's like you've got to go and do the work and then show everyone what's actually possible of, like, to be able to done. Like people like to see it get done. It was like, as an example, like when I done 75 hard, like my sister was the first one to see it, but she wanted to see me complete it and like not taking any shit out on Jess, but like she wanted to see me complete it to then do it herself. So it was like people love to see the success.
They like to see it actually in play, right? Before, obviously, they see someone do it physically, it's like a theory. You know, and when they see that in practice, it's like, well, fuck, actually, maybe I could do that. And it's crazy how like you're that person for so many people, and I feel like that at times I'm that person for people as
100%,
well, right?
man.
Because we don't even realize it, but through doing the things we do, by being the real people we are, like we're actually inspiring other people, and they might not say it, they might not, once in a blue moon we might get a bit of a praise, but just knowing that it's going to make a difference to just one person, bro, is what keeps us going.
Well, and that's the thing, and like I said, like I was talking to you about, like the imposter syndrome sometimes that you get, and like that's sometimes what I struggle. Like I struggle with that so hard as well, because like I know myself, I've gone and done like from where, and I struggle to look back sometimes because it's like. It's just I'm so far from that life.
Yeah.
But like when I do look back, sometimes I'm like, oh fuck, like.
It's so important to do that though.
Yeah,
because
it's
you
so
get that
important.
imposter syndrome because, like where you are now.
Yeah.
2 years ago, you would have had imposter syndrome about where you are today. So 2 years from now, when you're gonna look back on this, you'll be like, oh, I've already done that. But it's important to look back how far you've come because, like. Past you would be proud of present you.
Oh, 100%.
And then present you is going to create the future you.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I always say, and will say it forever. Like I'm just a general Aussie bloke. Like you don't get more Aussie than me. Like I'm out at like CMC Country Music Festival, like in the mosh pit, like whatever it is. And it's like I just love I love people. I love being around people. But it's just like to think. Like so many people get caught up in this, and this is also why I used to drink as well. Like I heard my pop say, like when I was younger, like, "Oh, I don't hang around this bloke here, like, because I can't trust someone who doesn't drink." And like it's such an Aussie culture thing these days.
It is.
And like I struggled with that because I was like, "Oh, okay, like obviously you're not allowed to drink then." Obviously you're not allowed to be sober at a pub.
Yeah.
And then I actually found out for myself how realistic that was, because I thought, oh, that's a bit of a piss take, surely. Like,
you go to a pub and
I'll go to a pub and like when I started going to the pub and I wasn't drinking, and it wasn't even people like trying to be dicks about it, but like I was speaking like some of Dad's mates, like my like 50-year-old blokes. I'm like, oh, why aren't you drinking? Like you shouldn't be at the pub if you're not drinking.
And they like think you're better than them, or that like that you're not part of the crew.
Yeah.
It's like that fit in or fuck off kind of mentality that we have as human beings.
It's so true.
Tribe mentality, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And you would have experienced it as well when you tried to stop drinking, that some of your mates would be like, what, you think you're better than us now? You've changed.
Yeah, yeah.
And
my first party, because one of the big things I wanted to do when I done 75 hard, I was like, I don't want to be that like this social person that's like
that stiff.
Yeah, you don't want to be that stiff, or you don't want to just stay at home and like spend all your time at home and do nothing. So I was like, I'm going to make sure if I'm invited to a party, I'm going to the party. If I'm invited to the pub, I'll go to the pub. Like, I'm going to make sure that I work, like, I don't want to just ditch all my mates and be like, oh, yeah, like, I can't do it because I'm doing this challenge. Like, I don't want to make it like that. But, like, I still remember, like, one of the first parties I went to, like, I wasn't drinking. And, like, all night I just copped it. I was like, why don't you drink? Why don't you drink? Why don't you drink? Have a drink. Have a drink. Why don't you drink? And it was just like, man, like, people just don't, like, it's like the crabs in the bucket. Like someone trying to, like one crab's about to get out and it just pulls you straight back down. So it's just
that's
exactly,
a great analogy.
It is like,
metaphor, I should say.
Yeah, whatever it is. Like,
mate,
don't worry, I'll back you. If you say it's an analogy, I'll back you.
My man.
Yeah, I can't correct you because I'm like, I don't know shit. Like, that's the thing. Like, people sometimes look at me like, oh, like, you must be smart or whatever. Like, I'm not as dumb as dog shit, but like, I like to call myself street smart, but I'm not book smart. Like,
give me both, bro.
Yeah, like, and like, I like to, and being street smart, it's only because I've learnt so much about everything, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I've learnt.
You can't teach that shit, bro.
Well, and that's the thing, like, as much as I look back at the old lifestyle I used to live, and it's like, fucking, it's out there. Like, some of the shit that you used to do, you're like, what the fuck were you thinking? But it's like, you sort of learn from those, like, now that you've come out of that experience, you learn so much from it. You're like, I do not want to go back there, or I do not want to be that person doing that stupid shit, or whatever it is. Yeah. And like, the thing is now, like, my biggest learner that I've learnt now is like, I can have fun with anyone, anywhere. So like, at the start of the year, I went on a Kentucky trip to Queenstown. Yeah. Completely sober. 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, whatever it was. And the first 3 days, like, I had people come up to me going, oh, like, do you want to drink? I was like, no, I don't drink. And we're like, there is no way you're out having this much fun without drinking. And then, like, sure enough, the next day I got on the bus and I was like full of energy, and they're like,
and they're all dying.
Yeah, they're all hungover as shit. Like, I've already been for a 10K run or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of them by the end of it were like, oh, maybe we don't have to drink tonight. Like we'll just go and chill or do whatever.
Yeah.
And we still go out. So it was like people were then
Challenge the
saying,
status quo.
well, yeah, like you go on a Kentucky. Of course you're going to get fucked up every night. Like, but like,
Oh no, that's what I did last
well,
year.
yeah, exactly. Like, and like my best mate and sister are over in Dubrovnik right now at Croatia. Like, so they literally just rang me this morning, like, pissed off their brains. And it's still funny. Like, I'm there and they're like yelling and screaming at people. And I'm like, that's fun.
Yeah.
But like, I can still go and do that sober.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what people like struggle to comprehend. Like, they think, oh, if I'm going to be sober, I can't go and do that.
That's the thing. They think that they can't go out and have fun. They can't go out and do this. They can't go out and do that. Like, this is the thing. Depending on the people you're around, right, the environment you're in, and also the places you're going, I feel like you can do whatever you want. But I can tell you to this day that I do not enjoy going night clubbing anymore because of the environment. Unless you're with a good group of people. Like, there is no way that, like, I had an experience a couple weeks ago. Me and Christine went up to Cairns. And we went out, catch up with a few friends. And I was not enjoying it one bit, right? I had to drink. I had to drink to actually enjoy that because we were around like people we didn't know, all that sort of stuff. Right. And just the nightlife in general. It wasn't something I enjoyed. Going to a bar, going to somewhere like that, like fine, sit there, you can actually have a conversation. But I literally did not have fun until I was pissed. But if you're with a group of people, you're with your mates, you're with the right kinds of people, and you've got the right kind of energy, it's a whole different kettle of fish.
100%. Yeah. And like, that's the thing, like, and that's one thing that I've learned. Like, I just don't put myself like in a situation of going to a nightclub or whatever it is, because I know from experience that I don't enjoy it. Like, it can be any nightclub in the world or whatever it is. Like, I just don't enjoy that scene no more. But like,
that was a good reminder for me. I literally first time drinking in probably about 8 months. And it was literally a big reminder as to why I don't anymore. And it sort of solidified it for me. It's like, I don't need that.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need that.
I'll tell you what, one thing I do about sober, karaoke.
Fuck it over. Like, you can actually read the screen when you're sober.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't sound like complete, well, I'll probably still sound like shit, but it's like.
You know when you go to a music festival? And like you're recording videos and you're screaming the lyrics? And then like you hear them back and you're like, I probably shouldn't put that out in public. That's what I'm like at karaoke.
So it's like one of those things, like I'll literally like go and steal the mic off anyone singing and just like get up there and sing and take the piss because like I find that so fun. Like,
it's refreshing.
It's fun. It's refreshing. Like you choke yourself out of your comfort zone still because you got to get up and sing in front of people. And like I even know with a couple of my mates or whatnot, it was like if they were sober, like, oh, I'm not getting up and doing karaoke. I'm like, who cares? Like,
what's the worst that could happen?
You've got pissed idiots trying to sing, like, do karaoke. Like, you're sober. You got to sound better than them anyway. Like, so, but that's one thing. Like, if I'm going out for a night out or whatnot, which I rarely do anymore because I'm always up at stupid o'clock trying to train. So, but it's like, if I'm going to go and do that, I'm going to have fun. Like, I'm going to make stuff work for me. Like, I don't want to go and do stuff that I don't enjoy.
You don't want to feel limited because of the life that you've chosen now.
Exactly. Like, you don't want to go, like you said, you don't want to go to the nightclub and be walking around going, like, you literally feel like you're out of the circle. Like, even if you, like, when I first started, I used to drink, like, soda water and lime. Just so it looked like I had a vodka soda at lime. But, like, even then, I still felt like such an imposter. I'm like, oh, yeah, people know I'm not drinking. Like, they wouldn't have any idea. But, like, I'd tell myself, I'd be looking at it going, oh, yeah, that's pretty obvious. Like, you can't tell shit. You can't tell shit.
It's funny that self-talk, we have that inner critic, right?
Yeah. Or it's like you go and talk to, like, you go to a table with a bunch of girls and you try and talk to them because you're sober and you're going, oh, do they notice that I'm sober? And like, this is
well, actually out of them. I'm sober.
Yeah.
We're not at the same level. Yeah.
So, and like then one thing that I've found, and like a couple of my mates that like sort of have stopped drinking with me as well, when we started going to like a pub on a Friday night just to get a feed or whatnot, and then like when we were looking for girlfriends back then, you're sort of like, you're looking around, you're going, oh, like this isn't my like type of chicks anyway. So like,
it's the kind of place I'd like to pick up.
Exactly.
It's the kind of place I'd meet my partner.
Exactly.
It's the kind of person I'd take home to my mum.
Yeah, exactly. So like you sort of start looking around and like, but then I think so much these days, everyone's just wired to go and do that. So, so I know with one of like my best mate, Kemo, like when he was like trying to look for someone, he was like, oh, like, where am I supposed to meet someone? And I'm like, I don't know, just go to a gym or whatever. Like,
Have a run club.
yeah, well, yeah, it worked for me. Like,
Yeah. Prime example.
yeah, exactly. But it's like everyone, like all the blokes feel like so, like that's the only place you can meet a missus or whatever.
That's
Like,
exactly it, man.
yeah,
Like, I've got friends and like they'll be doing really well. They have a partner. They're not really drinking. As soon as they're single, they're just like, all right, back to party life. Back to doing that shit. Back to Tinder, this sort of stuff.
yeah,
And it's like, this is the thing. We're looking for love, right? Long term. That's what we're looking for, whether we like it or not. Like, you can admit it, you can not admit it, you can say you're a tough cunt, you don't need it. But at the end of the day, that's what we're wired to look for, is for companionship, right? It's part of survival.
Yep.
Okay, back to prehistoric times when we were cavemen. Bonk him over the head and drag him off the cave type shit, right? But this is the thing. Like, we're wired to look for that. Are we going to find that? And the kind of person we really want in those sorts of situations and environments. And I think that's a really cool thing to bring attention to, because for so long I kept repeating the pattern, repeating the pattern. And I was in a cycle of getting with the same girls, ending up with the same problems, fucking this and that, whatever it might have been. And it was because I kept putting myself in that same situation, the same environment, right?
And it's like one thing that I sort of started doing towards like the end of last year when I was like, I sort of want to start looking for a partner. I was like, all right, what's my ideal partner gonna like? What are they gonna be like? I was like, I want them to be like ambitious,
perfect partner, right?
like everything, like so perfect partner. And I was like, am I that person?
Oh man,
which is the biggest thing. Like, you can't expect to go like, and this is what me and Tay joke about, because you know how you always say, oh, like the only thing I wish I had a male partner earlier. Like I say that, like me and Tay always joke about it, it's like, if she had met me like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, she would have walked the other way. Like, there is no, like, even though I'm still the same person, but like there is no way like me and her ever crossed paths. Right. And like, since I changed my mindset at the end of last year of like, who do I want to, like, I want someone who's going to push me and like see the best out of me and whatever, like grow as a team and all that. I was like, okay, like, I need to be that person as well.
Yeah, you need to change your vibration. You need to change your energy, because obviously what you put out is what you attract, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So by you going through that transition and that transformation period, like, you started to attract different people into your life.
100%.
People don't understand this. They think that, like, obviously, like we said, like when we first got sober and started partying and that sort of stuff, we're like, oh, we're going to be lonely as fuck now because all our friends do that shit.
Exactly.
But you start to attract people and this is the thing, they weren't not there before, but because you change your focus, the things you start to notice become different, right?
Well, it's like, so my dream car's like a big GMC, like a big GMC ute, like, mate, it's on me like dream vision board and all that sort of stuff. And like before I'd done like a vision board, I was like, oh, like you never see a Dodge Ram, or like I'd never seen them anywhere. Literally, as soon as I stuck like that big ute up on the vision board, it's like, oh, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. And like driving past them all the time, I'm like, surely I couldn't have been just like driving past them all the time, but because they weren't like consciously in my sight.
RAS.
Yeah, you're just like...
Reticular activating system.
Actually, Tay even said this the other day. It was so funny. Like, we're driving to a recovery lab and she goes, I'll tell you what I've never seen anymore, a yellow car. So as soon as she says that, we're driving to a recovery lab 5 minutes down the road, 4 yellow cars. On the way home, another 4 yellow, on a 5-minute drive each way. And I was just like, that is mental. Like, because she's like, I never see him anymore. And like, as soon as she said that, a yellow car coming around the street. And I was like, I was like, it's just because you don't look for him anymore. I was like, because when you're younger, you're playing Spotto. So you're always looking for a yellow car. So like, when you're not playing Spotto, what are you meant to be doing? Like, what's a yellow car like significant for? So
how can you use that to obviously, like, is that something you use, like your focus, like what you focus on is what you get? Is that something you use in your day-to-day life?
Well, like I try and do like a bit of visualization here and there.
Yeah, bro.
One of the ways that I sort of learnt through Andy Frizella, like the way that he does it, is picture yourself where your dream situation, like your dream day. So like wherever it be in 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. And like try and break that down into like really good pieces. So like I'll have like, when I wake up, I've got the lights slowly dimming and whatnot. And I'm living on a block of land, like overlooking the beach with the sun coming up over the water. Got our gym downstairs. Like we like got the GMC ute, like gun barrel grey GMC ute. So like for me, that's how I started, like, and I'd like go into real big detail about it. But like now I also do it for like when I'm going to do my 36 half Ironmans. It's like some days I might pick what I'm hoping is going to be an easy day. And then it's other days where it's like,
It sucks.
everything can just go wrong. It's like I'm visualizing a flat tire, like on the bike, like whatever.
Gotta
Like
be a few of those, bro.
the thing is, on my training, I haven't got a flat tire yet, and I know it's gonna happen. Like, because like since I started training for it in March, so what am I now, like 4 months into training? Like I've done however many 1,000 Ks on my bike, haven't had a flat tire. And I'm thinking, I'm like, as soon as I get to the event, it's going to be like flat every single day. No, but it's like one of those things, like you've got to prepare for the worst situation.
Correct.
Like Michael Phelps used to do it when he used to swim. He would actually, like, he'd visualize the best case scenario, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So there was a race, I think it was like, it might have been like the 100 fly or something like that. We actually dove in, his goggles filled up with water.
Yeah.
Or his goggles fell off, or I think filled up with water.
Yeah.
So he couldn't really see. But like he had visualized his whole whole race that he still won gold. Like, so he knew, he was like, okay, well I can't see, so I'm just like, I've got to count every stroke. Like, got to, like he was prepared for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I use like, I guess like that visualization and preparing in a lot of stuff that I do these days, and like. Even when I've just got a bit of free time now, it's just like wind down and like you sort of just like think about stuff in the future, what can be and what is hopefully going to happen. And I think like, you bring that in towards you, and it's just like being at the run club. Like I always used to like think like, oh, I'd always want to be a leader. Like no matter, like even when I was playing footy, like I wasn't the best player on the team, but I was like, always want to be a captain. Yeah. Because I feel like I'm the toughest. Like, or I feel like I'm the best leader on the team. Like, even though like I wasn't anywhere near the best player, I always felt like I showed good leadership skills. Like I felt like, so then once I sort of started doing that, I now like get to be the hype lord at GC. Like, so it's like I get to stand up in front of, I don't know, 80 people a week, like, and try and like help them find why they want to do stuff. And so it's all about like, I just use it as like that visualization is sort of like pinpoint different bits and pieces where you can then grow into it. Yeah. And like some shit, it might never happen. I don't know. Like a lot of people, successful people talk about it and say it's unreal. Like I've heard of lots of people talk about visualization and say it like successful people.
Pretty much most of the most successful people in the world will talk about some form of visualization or some form of thing that they do every day, like a morning routine. Yeah. So what does your morning routine look like? Oh,
I got a shocking one. I'm not the best. So me, like, and thanks to you now, I've also got the Opal app. So it used to be me. I'd used to get up, go and do a shit, get stuck on Instagram for 10
20 minutes. 30 minutes later.
Like that's what you do. But so like now I'll just get up and I normally just like, pretty much as soon as my feet hit the floor, I've got to do a shit. So I'm like, I've got to do a shit. But then like, I'm pretty much just straight into training, no matter what it is. Like every morning, I'm just like, I'll eat on my way to training, whether it's like swimming or like I might be in the gym or I might be doing Pilates, running, whatever it is. I just pretty much get up, go. I'm out the door. I'm eating, like I'll pack my sandwiches the night before. So have some peanut butter and honey sandwiches on the way to training and that.
Morning routine, right?
Yeah. So it just makes it like, because I find if you try and do something that you're not driven to do it first thing in the morning. Like say if you might just get up and then you get stuck on the toilet watching Instagram and then so easy to lose. These
reels are that fucking good.
Yeah, it's so easy to lose track of time. Yeah. But it's like if you get up and it's like, all right, bang, I'm going to go and do that. Like I'll put my phone on the furthest desk away as well, like with an alarm. So it's like as soon as I hear the alarm go,
something I teach my clients to do, bro.
Man, honestly, it's like one of the best things just to get out of bed, because like you're up, you're gone, you're over there. So there's no chance that you're turning your alarm off. And like, even the thing is like, even if you turn your alarm off and you lay there, you just like, you start thinking about, oh, is it really worth me going to go and do this? But like, even if you just get up, like some people fall back to sleep. Like the thing is, but like, even if you're getting up, you're already wasted like a minute. Yeah. And you've already got yourself in a negative mindset about it. Like, because you're laying there and you're going, this bed's pretty warm. Like, I don't want to get out of bed, bloody blah.
Especially this time of year, right?
Oh, yeah. So, actually, I like it up here. Mate, this winter...
Yeah, I'm climatized to Queensland, bro, obviously, but you guys are fucking...
Yeah, she's coming up here, I'm like...
Further down south,
I know, so... I'm petrified for the day I do climatize because I'm like, oh, I love walking around like middle of winter up here, shirt off, like catching some rays. I'm like, oh, it's unreal. But yeah, like it's one of those things. Like it's so easy to lay in bed, but like I'm always just like bang. I just go up and like work out. Like that's one of my. I think for a mental health sort of aspect, I think it's one of the best things you can do. Like go and work out first thing in the morning. Like I don't say I get up and read 5 pages and go and do this, that, and like have a 3-hour morning routine. Like I'm just like up, go and work out.
Yeah.
And then it's like you've already done your workout, like one of your workouts for the day, or you've done your workout for the day.
Yeah.
Then you've got whatever, like it's a big tick item.
Well, that's the thing. Not only that, it's probably one of the hardest things you're going to do in the day.
Exactly.
And
like
it's already conquered, right?
It's like slay the dragon.
Yeah.
Like slay the dragon first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
The rest of the day doesn't seem that hard, does
Exactly
it?
Right.
So it's like when I used to live back at Sydney, I used to have to swim on like, I think it was like a Wednesday morning, middle of winter, outdoor pool. And like, let me tell you, that's one hard dragon to slay because you're there. And like, it is cold. Like it's cold. Like you're swimming and top of your back feels like it's freezing. And like, because the air, like it's so steamy, all the air that like you're breathing in, like you're sucking in and you're really just sucking in water vapor.
Yeah.
So, but like, that's one of those things you do it, like as much as it sucks to get in and get it done. Yeah. Once you do it, you're like, oh, the rest of the day's a piece of piss now.
Nothing, yeah.
So I generally think that's one of the best things you could do. Like, and I even found like over this last 18 months, there hasn't been many times where I'm not working out. But the 2 weeks that my coach told me to have off after my half Ironman was probably one of the worst 2 weeks. I like mentally and just feeling flat.
Yeah, mindset was.
Because like you're just not motivated. Like you're like, oh, it is what it is. Like,
Man, I'm gonna put my hand up and just own this shit right now. But Monday, Tuesday, I was cooked as fuck on Monday. I think a lot of it to do was with the fight I had on Friday night last minute, right? But Monday, I had a lot of clients away, and I was like, fuck, I could sleep right in this morning. So I did.
Yep.
And I felt like shit all day.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I haven't got clients on a Tuesday, but I usually get up first thing in the morning and go to the gym.
Yep.
Same thing. I was I could sleep in.
Yeah.
6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And then I got up, and then the rest of the day, I felt like shit. Until I went and boxed, I felt like shit. Until I trained and moved my body, I felt like garbage.
Yeah. 100%. So I reckon that's honestly, and it's so simple. And it's not like this thing where you got to go and roll around in the sand 100 times, or it's like it's not like the cold plunge or whatever. Like the cold plunges are tough as well. I went through a stage where I was doing like cold showers, like only showers during winter last year. So I hate I do it a lot.
I still do one every morning, bro.
I went through it. I'd done it 2 months last month. I done it the whole month, like just in the morning, just like a 3-minute cold shower. But it's like it gets you going. I don't think that is going to like make or break your day. Like. I generally don't think it is, but it's like working out, I think, is the biggest catalyst to give yourself a successful day. Like,
I couldn't agree more, man.
100%.
I really couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So when it comes to morning routine, that's the one thing that you use.
That is my staple.
That's a pillar.
Yeah. Like, because I like to try and keep flexible as well, because it's just like, you never know what's going to be coming there. Yeah. And like the thing is, some days I'm running for training, some days I'm swimming for training, some days I'm riding, some days I'm in the gym. So it's different every day. So yeah, but that's the one thing where it's like, no matter what I'm doing, once I've done that workout, I feel $1 million. Yeah. It's like, and then that's why, like, you probably see me on the way to the gym and I'm like dragging my feet, probably like got my eyes shut. But everyone always sees me, and it's like, I'm not always this energetic, bubbly person. But like when I'm out of the house, I am this like.
Yeah, but you got to wind up to become that person.
Because you got to get going in the morning and whatnot. Yeah. But then I also don't want to fill people full of shit. Like when I get home, like I like to wind down. Like I'm like not a big TV watcher. So I just like to like, literally I'll just sit back and chill, and me and Tay can talk for an hour. Like it's just like, I just don't watch TV. So like that's one thing. That's actually one big thing that I think like, I look back now 2-3 years ago, getting stuck on Netflix or like TV, how much time I used to waste on that. Yeah. Like I used to think, oh, I've never got like time, like never got any time. Like even when I was like 21, 20, whatever, like I was working, but literally I look at it now, I used to go to work, I'd come home from work, I'd probably watch a show, like whatever it was, like I'd watch one episode, then I'd go to footy training, then I'd probably like go to the pub, have a feed after footy training,
come back more episodes.
Then I'd come home and watch like another 2-3 episodes before I'd go to bed.
You got no time though.
Got no time.
Yeah.
Like, but when you're caught in that mindset, you're like, that's the norm. Everyone else is doing it. What else are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, all the work boys are giving you recommendations to watch on Netflix, or you're watching it at at the same time as one of the work boys.
For each other, right?
Yeah.
And then you're telling yourself a story around why you can't do this and why you don't
Yeah.
do that. But then really, we never actually want to take a step back and look at ourselves.
100%. So like that is one of the biggest, like, because there's always just shit. Like if you watch the news, it's like everything's always bad.
Yeah.
It's like you're always, no matter
The world sucks.
The world sucks, yeah.
Yeah,
But
my world doesn't suck, but you know what I mean?
like that's the thing. Like I don't watch TV. I like when people ask me, and it is very bad because I generally don't know what's going on.
I'm the same, bro. I'm exactly the same.
Some people go to me, "Oh, how about this?" And I'm like, "What about it?"
Oh yeah, that's terrible. I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, it was on the news." And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty bad." I was like, "But I don't watch the news." Like,
I haven't watched the news in probably about 3 or 4 years. I don't think.
yeah, and it's like one of those things, and it's like made to bring you down. I feel like it's always negative. Like
Give you that ceiling.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like that barrier. Like
Yeah.
if this is what happens if you fuck up, or this is what happens if you do this, or this is what happens if you buck the trend, or
yeah.
you know, don't go outside because you might get hit by a bus.
And it's one of those things like, and I find it whack. There's so many good stories out there.
Yeah.
Imagine if the news showed all the good stories.
Imagine if the news like showed stories like what we're talking about now.
Well, exactly.
Like
It's-
podcasts do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I just really find it crazy because I'm like, it could be used for such good, but it's not. It's just used to trap people in. And like some people
media.
want to hear the shit, but like that's what gets the views. Like,
You know what that is, right? Because we all have a negative bias.
Yeah.
When we have that shit and we watch that shit, it reaffirms our negative bias.
yeah,
That's how we're
100%.
hardwired as humans until we make a change.
Yeah, it's mental, eh? And it's just like, so that's one thing that I don't do personally. Like, it choose like I feel like in the big scheme of things, that's probably one of the biggest time wastes. Like that and your phones,
Yeah.
which like your recommendation of Opal the other day.
Bro, game changer.
Oh my god! Like
Yep.
I was because Tay was away last week, so I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, and then I saw you download it, and I was like, all right, this is a really good choice. Like
I should get endorsements for this, by the way, Opal. just
yeah,
saying.
yeah. Opal, but like you
Sponsor me, guys.
use your code Benny Low,
I need a
50% off.
podcast
Yeah.
sponsor. Give me a sponsor, guys.
Yeah, yeah, honestly. But like, so I was like, a week where I don't have Tay here, like, obviously I'm going to have more time to myself
Yeah.
to then obviously get stuck on my phone.
Yeah.
I was like, why not give it a try?
Perfect.
I was like, holy, like the second day, I was like, I think the day before I spent like 2.5 to 3 hours on Instagram. That next day I spent 40 minutes. And like literally since that, I've had it for like 10 days now.
Yeah.
I don't think I spent over 40 minutes on there, like since then.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there's already like 2 hours of a day that like,
You're using for
and I feel like I'm good on like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm easily trapped or like getting stuck on the reels, but like you look at it, like the evidence is there.
How many times do you pick your phone up though and go to click on an app and you're like, oh, it's locked?
Yeah,
How many-
yeah,
How
exactly.
many times? It's like a little wake up call. It's
Yeah.
like, I was bad.
Yeah,
was
but like
bad.
I generally like because I pick on my younger sister because she is a shocker. Like she'll get stuck on the TikToks and like there were stages where we were going through and like we're comparing like usages, and like, and this is like how general like because I thought I was good. Like so she was like some days could be stuck on her phone for like 10 hours, watching reels, whatever it is. But like that's so common these days, and like I look at it now, and I'm like. I've just cut my time down so much. So like your phones and your TVs are, I reckon, the biggest time wasters. And obviously who you're surrounding yourself with.
Exactly right, man.
Like those, if you look at those three things and you fine tune those, you give yourself so much more time to then go and do stuff that you kept on telling yourself that you didn't have time to do.
Stuff that's actually going to move the needle for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Like, it's just all about putting one brick after the other. Like, everyone expects, like, especially with my training. So it's like, that's what I like to use this analogy for because it's like, everyone expects me to go, oh yeah, training this week, I've had another big jump. Where it's like, I don't even know. Like, some weeks it's like, it was just another week of training. And I don't.
How I actually moved.
Yeah. Like, but it's all about just like building small little bricks and like giving myself that confidence to go and do it. Like,
Yeah.
for sake's sake, like Tay was like, she's been writing up my swimming programs. And like when I've been swimming, it might have been like a month ago. She's like, how far? Because like I've got a sore bad shoulder from footy. So that's why like when I swim, my shoulder's always sore. It's like, how far do you reckon you could swim before it blows up? And I was like, oh, probably 400 meters. Like of like a continuous swim with no stopping. Probably 400 to 500 meters. And then my coach 3 weeks ago was like, okay, like we're going to start doing stuff where it's just like, you got to go and just swim 1.9K straight through. And I'm like, oh shit, this is going to hurt. And literally the first maybe 2 or 3 sessions, it like hurt.
Yeah.
But now I'm like getting in there and I'm like, oh, what was the big drama? Like, it was just like you build that confidence. Like, because I'd told myself I couldn't swim past 400 in a row. So we just kept it at your max was your 400. Again. Yeah, there's that ceiling. But then it's like, my coach was like, no, you're going to go and do 1.9 straight through. Yeah. Like, let alone, I was doing 3K sets. Like, so it's a lot of time in the water, but everything was broken up small.
Yeah, of course,
But it's like, I was like, oh, this is going to hurt. Like doing a 1.9 straight through, like, but like, then I'd do it a couple of times and now I'm like, oh, it was that hard. Like, it's not easy. But it's still, it's not easy, but it's like, oh, that hurt a lot less than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And it's just because, like, you kept your mind at what...
When you haven't done something, it seems harder to do, right? But once you do it the first time, it's like anything, the comfort zone, whatever it might be. Like, we're talking about this, me and Danny on our first podcast episode, and it was talking about running a marathon.
Yep.
Like, it's not that you can't do it, it's that you haven't done it.
Yeah.
But once you do it, it becomes familiar, and you start to embody that. That imposter syndrome goes away.
Yeah.
Because you start to feel like you fit in that situation. You start to feel like you can do that thing. You start to feel like that is for you.
Exactly, man. And so even my first 10K.
Yeah.
My first 10K, like, because I was a fittish footy player, and my mate was like, oh, we're doing like a 10K at Picton, like, just come down on I think it was a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Just him, his brother, and his brother-in-law. And I was like, yeah, okay, like, we'll see what's happening. And I think I'd done my first 10K in like 55 minutes.
Yeah.
I was cooked. Like, literally so bad. Like, we went and watched his missus play footy that day.
That's not a bad time for your first one either.
But it's not a bad time for your first one either. Like, but I perceive myself as like a really fit footy player.
Yeah.
But whatever, like, however the fuck you perceive that. But like, and now I look at it and you've got like, people like Corey Casey dropping like a 36-minute 10K at Mega Run. Like, but that was fast between us for a 55-minute 10K. I was like, oh yeah, that's moving. Like, but my body was cooked.
Yeah.
Like,
there was nothing left. Nothing
left in the tank. My hips were blown up. Like, literally, I went and watched his missus play footy at like lunchtime.
Yeah.
I went back to my house. I didn't get out of the pool for the rest of the day. Yeah. I could hardly walk. Yeah. He was like, oh, you should come out for dinner with us. I was like, I can't walk. Like, I literally...
Bring me takeaway.
Yeah, I can't walk. Like, my hips were just blown up.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking to Dave about it yesterday. I was like, and now it's funny to look at me going to do a 15K run easy. Like, I had to then go and get on the bike for 2 hours after.
Your like end goal will one day be your warm up.
Exactly, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Like, by far.
You got to start somewhere.
And that's the thing. As long as you keep, because so many people, and like I've caught myself doing it from time to time, and they go for this goal, and they get to the goal, and they're like, oh, that's it. I'm not going to go for the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. Like, they do the work good enough to like go, oh yeah. So it could be for me like, oh, I'll go and do the half Ironman. And I could have went and done the half Ironman and go, that's pretty cool. Like, but that'll do me.
Yeah.
Like, and happens to a lot of people. Like, a lot of people are like,
they hit the ceiling.
Yeah, they hit the ceiling and it's like, oh, okay, now I couldn't go and do a full one. Or like whatever they limit themselves to.
Yeah.
And I just look at that and I'm like, I always just want to push the boundaries. It's like, I'm never content. Like, as soon as I done Mount, because like I said, I was like, oh, I could have done the miler.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm never content. And as dangerous as it is, because sometimes I forget to celebrate what I do. Because it's like,
I know that feeling.
You're so,
all too well, bro.
Because you're so caught up, you're like, oh, like in your head, you've already done it.
Yeah, you've done it, you've achieved it, now what next?
Yeah.
On to the next, on to the next. Yeah.
But it's also like, some people get so caught up, like, and it's a real fine line. Like, you should sell it like the one that Andy Frisella talks about, like doing a 24-hour celebration at most.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you hit that big goal, you got 24 hours to celebrate. And then within 24 hours, you're back into that next goal. Because like, so many people can get caught in doing it. And then they go, that was really cool. And like, it's so easy could have happened to me when my coach said, have 2 weeks off now. I could have went 2 weeks off. I'm getting pretty comfortable sitting around now. Like, yeah, that half Ironman was pretty fun, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah,
like,
that's my kind of fame.
Yeah. And like, the funny thing was, but like, so many people come and saw me like that week or two after, whatever it was, like whenever I saw them, they're like, oh, I just saw you done that half Ironman, man. That's crazy. And I was like, I was already out of that mindset that was even like, it was hard because obviously you're racing it, you're pushing yourself to the
as
max.
soon as you finish it, it's just like, I've done it now.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, so I could have easily said, oh yeah, nah, that was the shit. Like that, as hard as you wouldn't want to go any harder.
Yeah.
And then you could just literally be content with that for the rest of your life and just go and sit at the pub and tell everyone, oh yeah, I've done a half Ironman. Like I'm the real deal.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's so many people get caught at that, and you've just got to like keep building those like bricks, like
you said, brick by brick.
Brick by brick. And it's like, you look back at where you were. Like I even look back at where I was 2 years ago and I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. So it's imagine like I keep doing this for another 3 years. Then I look at that stage where I aim in 3 years to look back. So 5 years between that, and like, who knows what it can be? Like as long as you keep moving forward, it's like the sky's the limit, really. Yeah. And it's like, you don't have to compare yourself to anyone. It's like where you come from, like how far can you push yourself?
That's the thing, like a lot of people see like goals like what you're trying to achieve and think that's so out of reach.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is to bring it back to a very base level and look at, okay, what's the first step? And how can I take that first step to start to achieve that goal, whatever it might be, right?
Exactly.
And so for you, that first step was that first half Ironman, right?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like, to go and do that, like, I was like, I was actually a bit disappointed that he sort of counted me out, like, because I've always been that big tough guy. Like, well, not even big, just like mentally tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was that first brick in the wall.
Yeah.
And then like I started perceiving myself as going, yeah, okay, now you can go and do this. And it's all about just like keep building that next thing up. And it's like, it doesn't even have to be that big. Like literally it could be for someone going out and doing a 2K run. Yeah. Or going and doing a 2K walk or whatever it is.
Doing
like
one thing better than what you did yesterday.
Exactly.
And then tomorrow's being 1% better than you are today.
Exactly. And like people how's it go? People underestimate how much you can do in a year. Or people overestimate how much you can do a year and underestimate how much you can do in 10 years. Yeah. So it's like one of those like perfect analogies where it's like you can really do so much in 10, as long as you just keep going and going and going, you can get so far. But so many people fall off after the first year. Yeah. It was like the podcast, like of podcasters, only 1% of podcasters get over 20 episodes. Yeah. So like...
And there's like some silly percentage of people that actually make it past the first episode, right?
Yeah. I think it's like... I can't even remember what it was, but it was like something nuts.
Like 90% of people don't make it past the first episode. Yeah. 1% of people make it past the 20th episode. Yeah. Yeah, well, this is what, episode 19 or something like that.
Exactly. Whoa, maybe the 1% club, you know? So like... But like you look at it for yourself and like that's been a pretty quick space in like how long it's taken you to get from like just the big bunch to then being that 1% club. Yeah. Like, but it easily could have been like after you've done your first potty, you could have went, maybe I don't want to do it. Yeah. Like, and I can see it as well, like from how people, because it's like one of those things if you're not getting inspired or you're not planning it out, it's so easy to fall behind the 8 ball. That's it. And then it's like, okay, you fall off the wagon, go to the next thing. Like, and that's what I've found, like I used to do so much as well. Like I always used to be like next thing, like, but they wouldn't build up together. So like when I grew up, like I used to love building. Like I was the same age as Will and I was on the job site. So like my old man's a builder. So like that's all I'd done growing up. And I was like,
granddad, bro, takes him to the job site.
Exactly. So it's
straight
like,
and concrete and all sorts of shit.
It's the world's best way to learn. Yeah. And like I am so lucky that I learnt that way. And like I had my builder's license by the time I was 20 years old. Heavy. So like I was in a class and doing my builder's license 3 nights a week online with people that was like 30, 35, whatever it was. Yeah. And I was just so passionate about it. But then like I got out of that. Then I went and done the buyer's agent thing. But I was just like jumping everywhere. And it's like, as long as you just keep like your main focus in a path, you can just keep going that way instead of like trying to jump like pinball all over the shop.
Yeah, if they chase 2 rabbits, then you'll catch none.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's so true. Like you've got to like just keep your headset on like your vision in front of you and just going to keep moving forward. But like if you just keep like getting distracted by all these shiny objects everywhere,
and
it's so easy. And it's even like when I was like doing the buyer's agent stuff, like all these investors, like, because I used to have like this investor's mindset, and it was like, oh, Bitcoin would pop up, then this thing over here would pop up, and it was like
quick money here, quick money there.
Yeah. But it's like, stick to what you know. Like for me, what I knew was property. Like, so why would I then go and try and do Bitcoin when I struggle to work a computer? Like, I'm probably going to be the first person to get hacked. Like, it doesn't make sense, does it? Like, but still, I couldn't, like, I had to learn for myself to go and do that. And it's one of those things, like, you can only control what, like, the controllables. Like, I can't control Bitcoin. So why go and chuck whatever in there that I don't know? Like, I don't know how it works. So why would I then go and trust Bitcoin or something stupid? Like, stay in your own lane and work really good at that. And then you make...
I think the thing is, like, obviously focus on that thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying not to try new things, but focus on the shit you know.
And obviously, like, there will come times, like, because even when I done the buyer's agent thing, like, when I first got that job, I was like, this is my dream job. I'm going to do it forever. I done it for, like, I done it for 4 months and I was over it. Like, I ended up staying in the job for, like, 9 months. And, like, I tried to leave it for, like, the last 4 months, but it was just, like, it was hard to leave. The boss needed me to stay and whatnot, but it was like one of those things. I thought as soon as I got that job, like, oh, yep, this is my dream job. Like, I don't even need to worry about another job ever. So, like, it was also good for me to step back and go, oh, this isn't all the glitz and glamour that I thought it was going to be. Go and find something that you're actually passionate about.
That's the big thing, right?
Find
something that fulfills you, actually fills your cup.
And it's so hard, like, because like my younger sister, like, I always try and push on, like, both my sisters, like, I'm like, what are you passionate about? Like, but the thing is, not everyone knows what they're passionate about. And, like, that's something that, like, I'm super lucky to know what, like, my passion is people. Like, I love people and I love seeing people grow and like, that's, if I can do that for the rest of my life, I'll die happy.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But, like, some people haven't found their passion yet. And it's like, and that's what I want to do. Like, I want to be able to help people find their crazy, like, be their passion. Like, finding their why. It's like, help people get to what they're put on this earth to be. Like, not everyone's, like, sure, some people are going to work at Macca's for the rest of their life and do whatever. But I feel like everyone is made to be something more. And if you want to just work at Macca's, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, but you should know that you are made to go and do something else. Or, like, there is a purpose for everyone in this world, no matter what it be. Like, that's the big thing.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
100%, man. Now, Layne, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Mate, I love being here.
Where can people find you? What are your links? Where can people donate? I'll put them all in the notes in the description, but where would they find you if they wanted to find you and have a yarn? So
the best way, guys, is Layno_Insano. So LAYNEO_Insano. On Instagram is probably the best way to get to me because... Or if you add me on Facebook, Layne Storrier, I'll also be on there, but I'm a lot more active on Instagram. So yeah, over that way. And then in the bio, I've got the fundraising page for Cystic Fibrosis. So, awesome. And that's got all the notes and that in there, why I'm doing it, or like a couple of details about CF and everything like there. And yeah, so that's where you can all find all the 36 for 36 stuff.
Sick, dude. And what about your podcast? If people want to have a listen to that, so Finding Your Crazy.
What's your crazy?
Nearly
got it, mate. No. What's your crazy? So yeah, if you just want to have a look at that on Spotify as well, yeah. What's your crazy? And I'm sure once I've got my little setup, I'll have Benny on there and talk to Benny about his crazy, because you look at someone like Benny about what he's even done over the space of the last 2. Would you say your biggest change been 2 years?
Biggest change in mindset 2 years, but it's been like a 6-year growth period.
6-year growth period.
Out of jail, yeah.
So like what someone like this he has done over 6 years, like got a fair crazy about him. So I can't wait to have him on the podcast, and like I want to just inspire everyone, and people reach out to me if they want to share their crazy stories about that. So yeah.
Okay, man, I love that. Now, one last little question. I do like to ask this on the podcast, but if you had all the money in the world, what would be the first thing you would do?
Still be doing what I'd be doing now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've said this before, and it's one of those things, like I look at my life and I wouldn't change it for anyone in the world. Like I've created this lifestyle that I get to live. It's one of those things that when we done the Mega Gorgons, I was saying to Will, I was like, as funny as it is, I was like, we suffered that whole weekend.
Yeah.
But I was like, you could not let me even trade places or like give me all the money in the world and go and do something. I was like, this is where I want to be. Like, I get to like be with my missus. I get to be like pushing my body to the limits like that. I genuinely love that. So yeah, all the money in the world. Like,
what would be one thing you do? The first thing that comes to your head.
One thing. If I could do anything,
go anywhere, hang out with anyone.
Ooh.
Jump on Joe Rogan's podcast or some shit. What would be the one thing?
The one thing. I'd love to go to Andy Frisella's like first form, like the place that they've got there.
Yeah.
So him and Sal Frisella, like the way that is built, like I'm not sure if you follow like how their gym is set up and their work scene. It is like the community that they've created there. It's like Mega Run on steroids as a work environment. So this environment, they've literally got, I can't even remember how big it is. It's like multiple thousands of square meters.
Wow.
And like, there's got this huge gym in there and they've got like a basketball court, like literally, but like at 4 o'clock for Navo, when everyone stops work, they will have 500 people in the gym. And like, so I look at that and I'm like, if there is one thing like on the bucket list for me to go and see or experience, I look at that and it's like the culture that they've built there. Yeah. Because like doing all the other stuff, like I love jumping out of a plane, like doing the skydive, like which you can see, but like, and I can see how addictive it is like for you to go and do it, but like all that, but it's like I genuinely love seeing like situations where people are pumped up to be there. Yeah. People want to be there. Like this can like the environment that they've built, it's like a big family. It's a huge family. It's a fucking huge family. Yeah, but it's like it's so sick. And like Andy Frisella talks about it as like he's got no kids because he's like the people that work here are my kids. Yeah. He's like this is genuinely like my family. And like to see people talk about stuff like that, I was like that is the environments that I want to be around. Yeah. So like if I had all the money, like that's I don't know. I'm a pretty easy bloke. I'm a pretty easy going rooster. So like money is not a thing. It's just like experiences for me. It's just like I love being around people I love. Yeah. And that's what it's all about for me. Yeah.